Hey, everybody, this is Randy Baxter. I'm the president of Asset Positioning Services and the provider of the Family Estate Doc software. And this boot camp today is designed to introduce you to Mr. Frank Divers, who I call this Frank Divers Unplugged, and he's going to spend the first part of the meeting over here just talking to us and giving us a message that he wants. I have a series of the most asked questions from our licensees that we're going to pose to Frank here in a little while. But my experience with Frank is I don't know how long we've done business.
Maybe 12 years.
Yeah. And Frank is, in my book, Approach Plan Succeed, I talked to you about my mentors, and the ones that I've ran into that seem to always show up right when I needed them. And Frank is one of them. And he has guided me through the growth phase of my white label with Family Estate Docs, and where we have we have signed up 177 licensees. We have 133 actively working right now. And I don't care to tell you, and I was telling Frank last night, our licensees, they're not just in the back end sales in August was over $450,000. And that's not counting my production, or that's just the different agents who are actually following our process and going in and doing the back end sales. And I've always told you all, my true purpose for being in this process is to set up a front end sale that leads me to an easy access to the back end sale, because you have to have a properly funded trust. And something that majority of my income that I get is not only just from the front end and the back end, but it's from the future sale. And that's things that are going to happen to that family after we write their estate plan. There's going to be deaths. There's going to be relationship changes. There's going to be asset changes, sale of homes, moving to new states. There's going to be health changes. And I, as working in this business, we know those things are going to happen. And it's inevitable. And usually when one of those things happen, money starts moving, and you may as well be in the sweet spot. And the sweet spot that I call the sweet spot is when those things happen, they're not going to call their broker. They're not going to call their insurance agent. They're not going to call their attorney. They're going to call the person that set up the estate plan. And I hear it so much. People look at me and go, what's our next step? What do we need to do? And that feels good to be, and you also, I think we talked about it last night, Frank, most of our good licensees become family members of each one of those families. And people say that to me all the time, Randy, you're part of the family now. You need to.
Again, I'm going to wrap this story up. So that's the way I've always communicated with people. And that is, once I understood that they were a true prospect, in other words, they had a need and I could fill that need, then I'm moving down the right path. So I would always explain, here's what the process is going to be, which is the agenda. And then when I had a closing conversation with our national director, Kathy Gumbiner, after I had dinner with Randy, and she was saying, yeah, it's an agenda. So I thank Randy for giving me a learning experience yesterday, but I just point that out for all of us to remember that if you look at things in that way, you can always find something every day that you can learn from. So there you have it. Now I just want to get right into this. And that is, I know you've got questions. I'm looking forward to the questions. And, and may you ask a question that I don't know the answer to. The answer is yes, that is absolutely possible. And if it happens, I'm going to be very happy, because it'll give me another opportunity, and perhaps multiple opportunities, that I can learn something today. And that's always what the goal is, not to just be complacent and satisfied with where we are, but always looking to sharpen the edge. And that has really been one of the key things that has enabled our technology company to grow to the size that it is today, is because we have always been committed to and focused to the details. So I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to also introduce Kathy Gumbiner. Kathy is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she's a member of our national team. She's our national director of sales and market development. Here's another, example of how life opens doors for us when we least expect it sometimes. And that is, I met Kathy perhaps a year and a half or so ago via a Zoom meeting that had nothing whatsoever to do with what we're talking about. It was some business people discussing various business strategies, and she was on that Zoom call. And during that discussion, I learned a little bit about her background. Her background being in the insurance business, the insurance industry, as a producer for quite some time, and also at the national level with some very well-known carriers. And I won't get into naming names, but she had earned a lot of her stripes through her experience, not only as a producer, but also in recruiting and training and doing all the things that you do and you strive to do even better as you sharpen your personal edge. So we met, and as I, began to learn a little bit about her, I said, I would like to take conversation offline with you. So we took offline and we communicated outside of that Zoom for me to learn more about what she had been doing her life and for her to learn about our company. And from there, shortly after that, she became a part of our team, not as a walk-in and become an executive member of our team, but as a come on board and go out and do it. And she has done that. She has been with us well over a year now. She is our national director because she's earned that position and she's got the background experience in that. And most especially, she loves estate planning. She loves what we're doing. She's passionate about it. So Kathy, if you want to take just a couple of minutes, because you're working with people all over the country now, and just speak to this great group of people that we've got here. Kathy Gumbiter. Kathy.
Hey, good morning, great group of people all over the country, I bet. Yes, I am up in Minnesota. We have already been in the 20s from the 80s, and it's been absolutely wonderful. So I apologize for my voice. It is cracking from the weather changes. But yes, when we talk about blessings and being in the right place at the right time, I seriously, meeting Frank was a life changer for me. And being on that Zoom, which he said it was completely nothing to do with the industry. And when he said, I would like to talk to you, and when he showed me Estate Docs Pro, folks, I was like, are you kidding me? This is the biggest no-brainer I've ever seen for the industry. And I'll tell you what, I've been in for a couple minutes since 1999 and working on a national level, training FMOs, working at the carrier level, speaking in front of agents, training agents, and starting my own agency. And I am a firm believer in legacy. I am a new grandma. I have a 7-month-old beautiful baby girl, and she's my legacy. It's not just about our real estate. It's not just about our money. And, our personal possessions of emotional value, that's such a huge thing because I have aging parents. I have 3 grown, amazing men, 2 daughter-in-laws, like I said, a granddaughter. But personal possessions of emotional value, if you're not having the conversations or helping get the conversations started with your clients or, with your suspects who are now prospects, you're missing out. But then the biggest part of your legacy is family values and life lessons. And being able to have a roadmap like Estate Docs Pro is such a great way to follow those conversations with your clients and build a relationship that's even deeper. And Randy, what you said, it's the business that comes as a result at the tail end that is going to really change your lives as well. But Frank, I can't thank you enough. And Randy, I've had the chance to talk to you briefly when you were visiting with Frank last time, but I'm just super excited at all of you people being able to get out there and help people keep their estates / legacy away from the state. And that's all I'm going to say. And I'll turn it back to you, Frank.
Wonderful.
Frank, could you do me a quick favor and explain the difference between
Yes,
Estate
yes,
Docs
yes,
Pro
yes.
and
I
Fancy
was
Estate Docs?
definitely going to do that.
Okay.
So, Estate Documents Pro, we are the technology company. When we started this company 15 years ago, all we had was a dream. That was it. We had no licensees. We were just barely developed the product. And so everything that we now see as reality today was a dream then. So as the Estate Documents Pro company grew as a technology company, we've been blessed in so many ways. We're in all 50 states. We're the largest technology company in the country that only does estate planning, that does not deal with the public. We don't deal with the public. We only work through professionals like yourself, whether you're a producer, licensed producer, you're also securities, you're a planner, you're an RIA, you're a broker dealer, whatever your role is within the industry, then you are eligible to be able to access our software. For years, you could access it directly with the technology company. However, we started setting up what we call white label partnerships back a number of years ago. And it was primarily because we were having some outstanding producers in the field that had really embraced the power of estate planning and incorporated it into their practice, and they wanted to replicate it. So as we began to watch our business replicated through agents and through advisors, we recognized that, hey, we can achieve our goals and our plans a lot easier, a lot better. Nothing's easy, but a lot better if we just purely focused on the technology. And we stepped away from contracting with licensees and supporting a network of licensees. So that's where our white label partnership program began to evolve. Randy Baxter started as a licensee back 12 years ago, whatever. Shortly after he started, he came to Phoenix and we met personally, and we were just a small company. And he still came on board with us. And after many years of seeing how this evolved within his own practice, understanding already the power of estate planning and the importance of estate planning. Power and importance are two key words. And he already knew that before he became on board with us. So when we started our white label program, he developed an interest in that, and he made a decision that he wanted to replicate his process, his training, his experience, his know-how into his own business, and became a white label partner with us. So today, along with other white label partners across the country, it's the only way that that professionals can access our software is through like Family Estate Docs, which is one of our white labels. And it's a significant investment, not just in time and effort. As Randy pointed out, you've got a growing national network of licensees, producers that are now using our technology within Family Estate Docs. And that's wonderful watching how that is continuing to replicate itself. It's just the things that we hear, the experiences that we get as a technology company, it's part of the reason why we no longer contract with licensees. We help you more by us getting the experiences from everywhere, from everybody, so that we can then work that through our processes and refine it and add to our technology to make what we've got, which is the largest in the industry, to make it even better, which is where we are. Our development team now is able to focus strictly on our platform and everything that we're doing today and what we're going to be doing tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. So it's a very exciting time. So that's the difference. That's who we are as Estate Documents Pro. We're the technology company. We're the one that supports everything that our partner, Family Estate Docs, does, along with asset positioning, all the psychology and the strategies behind your business. So that's the difference. That is the relationship that we have. It is a significant investment in dollars, time, and effort, and it pays off. So thank you for having me clarify that, Randy. So now I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to open this to discussion for answering your questions. Go for it.
Turn off your computer and just use Randy's.
Hey, Randy,
Hey, Carter.
I got a question for my doctor's appointment, really quick for Frank. I'm getting into the special needs community. Is there any way of integrating into the software the capabilities of doing the power of attorneys for healthcare and powers of attorney for the kids who have special needs? If their parents
Okay.
buy the package?
Okay, so good question. In the world of law, attorneys create documents, and they have been doing that for a long time, for decades. And so one of the unique things about being an attorney is that you have the power of the pen. You have the license to be able to create your own document. So the legal profession discovered decades ago that you can brand documents. So when we talk about a special needs trust is simply a brand. That's all it is. There are essentially two types of trust: irrevocable trust and revocable trust. We have a revocable trust. So rather than selling a revocable trust and a special needs trust, our attorneys advised us to make it one and the same. Our goal 15, 16 years ago was to have a software platform that would create a living trust that would virtually cover any situation that a single individual or a family would have, family meaning husband and wife. We wanted our documents to be comprehensive. We did not want them to be one size fits all. That wasn't it. So in the questionnaire, one of the questions that you answer, and that is, this particular child is special needs. They're handicapped. Now, they may be a minor child or they may be an adult child. Regardless, if they are considered legally special needs, that entitles them to Social Security disability income for the rest of their life, provided they do not violate the provisions of special needs to qualify for that government payment. So they can't do that. That's the reason they have to have a special needs trust. So when you're putting that child's information into our platform, I'm going to check the box, which is up in the right-hand corner, that says this person is handicapped. And now all the language in the documents that speaks about that particular child will identify them as special needs. So now we've made it very clear in the trust that this is a special needs trust as it applies to this one child. Let's say, for instance, I've got 3 children. My other 2 children are healthy, normal. So consequently, they are going to have provisions in the trust that the special needs child will not have. And specifically what I mean by that is, in order to not jeopardize the Social Security disability income of that child, what we do not want to do is put that child in as a beneficiary with full access. In other words, they get outright distribution when I pass away. So let's say, again, I've got 3 children and I want my beneficiaries to have a third, a third, a third. That's fine. And I further, let's say for illustration purposes, that my estate is worth $1 million. So now that's a third, a third, a third. Well, the 2 children that I have that are normal, not saying that the special needs child is not normal, because they may be gifted, whatever the case may be, but the 2 that are not special needs, they're going to get their a third percentage when I pass away. They're going to get it because it's outright distribution, and I've selected that option. However, with this special needs, I'm going to restrict distribution to income only. This way, we don't jeopardize the Social Security disability income. We protect that government benefit. Therefore, it qualifies as a special needs trust. Now, what does it mean, income only? Income only means health, education, maintenance, support. HEMS. That's the legal, just the acronym for what we're really doing. So any health needs that child is going to have is going to be taken care of out of the trust. Now, the other requirement, if this is a special needs, is they need a guardian. if you qualify under the government plan for Social Security disability income, then you've got someone that's taking care of you. So that's another very important document that is included with our estate plan, and that would be a guardianship form so that the parent can select who the guardian is going to be for that special needs child of theirs. So those are the things that are must-haves, the things that you do. So any health needs, any education, let's suppose that, you know, they're handicapped special needs, but we have some special needs adult educational programs that I want them to be able to go through. So they would be able to get that paid for. Maintenance and support are kind of synonymous with each other, but it's anything that's necessary to support them and maintain their lifestyle. So that is the special needs provision. That's a long ways for me to answer it, but I wanted to be as thorough as I can so that you understand that what we have is comprehensive. We get asked that question a lot because the community of special needs families is huge. It's huge. And I know of agents that have connected to special, what do they call them? Support groups. A lot of hospital communities have support groups for families that have special needs children. And I've been very blessed in my family, although my parents, God bless their soul, they're passed now. They used to say, I think I've got some kids that have some special needs, or maybe a kick upside the butt or whatever. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, those people, it's a growing community, and those families, we've got people on our staff. One of our people is an attorney, and she grew up in a family that has a special needs child, and that child is an adult. And it is very, very heavy on the parents taking care of an adult that's special needs. So until you've walked in those shoes, it's hard to relate to what those people live with. I know Kathy, our national director, it wouldn't qualify as necessarily special needs, but she's got aging parents that she has to take care of. Now, are they special needs? Well, yeah, they're special and they need a lot of help. Now, how many millions of families out there are like that? Millions of them. So those communities are not only ripe for picking, and I don't say that in a derogatory way. I just say that these are groups that in the marketing business, what you always look to do is you look at the scope of the market. The scope of the market, imagine, is like looking at the globe. The globe is the earth. That's it, right? We can look into the universe and see we don't know where that goes, but we can look at that scope. So in the business that we're in, we look at the market, which would be US, United States, and the scope of that market. How big is it? So when you can just say, oh, it's huge, but stop and think about that. Where are all the touch points to get into the market? That's what you want to identify, and special needs is a touch point, and it's a hot one. It's like you hit that one and boop, and it gets attention. It's like commercials you see on TV that are targeting people that can't hear very well. You know what I'm saying? And they're talking and they're saying, oh, we can hear you. Isn't this wonderful? Because we got these new hearing aids. You know what I'm saying? They are speaking to a market. So when you think of the market that you are speaking to, think of it from the standpoint special needs. And I thank you so much for bringing that one up, because that's like uncovering a huge gold mine, because it's not a cold market. It's a very warm market, because those are people that are dealing with challenges and issues every day, and they have a soft spot for doing the right thing. And I can't emphasize that enough. Doing the right thing is the business that we're in. The right thing, not by me, not satisfying me and my ego, but it's doing the right thing for the people that we strive to help every day.
Right. One thing, and Carter, I have watched your development over the past couple of months, and And you have been very willing to emulate what we teach without innovating. But the people that are out there listening right now, I think the advantage of doing business with family estate docs is our training program. I know we have great support through Frank and anytime we have questions and things like that. But you know what most people don't know how to do is how to enter that market. And there's one sentence that you can use to enter that market, and you don't know what you're going to find. You might find a tax problem, somebody with millions of dollars. You might find people with no children, maybe with some illnesses. But there's one sentence that you can use, and that's what we teach. And we teach you to increase the number of times you use that sentence. And all you have to do is say, "Hey, I think you might benefit from a conversation with me about your current estate plan." And you have to remember, it's not the one you want to sell them that gets them interested. It's the fact that they get to talk to you about the plan that they have right now, and they can see that maybe that plan is not the correct plan. You don't know what you're going to find when you do that. But I'll be honest with you, everywhere I go, when I do that same approach, and I make my family tree asset positioning go-to first interview conversation using an agenda.
There you go.
Okay, if you use the proper agenda, when those people, and then you look at it and say, "Hey, you've done a good job with your assets. Don't you think you need the proper paperwork?" When they say yes, and you get that set up, all you have to say after that is, "From our conversation, I have some ideas for funding this process, but I need to do some research and I need to run some numbers. When we come back to notarize and witness this estate plan, do you want to see your numbers?" Folks, those are the power phrases that we use. And that leads you to, they say, yes. And Carter, what I'm saying to you is I'm so impressed with you going after the special needs children. And I know that you're experienced in that. And I know that you're qualified to talk to them about it from your personal experiences. So if you're out there listening and you're not with us right now, come join us, because, you'll get a book from me called Approach, Plan, Succeed. And I will teach you every step you need to go through to get up to the point where it's time to use the software. And I think across the country, that's our forte. That's what we do best, is we teach you how to get in front of the client, and then we teach you what to do step by step after that. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Frank, but
No, you didn't interrupt. That's
Okay.
that's perfect. And I just, there's so many unique ways. And one of the things that I really appreciate and I respect about Randy is that he's not a talker, he's a doer. And there's many ways to get to the top of the mountain. And what you have to do is you have to just, you have to be yourself, number one. You have to be yourself, to thine own self be true. And this approach that, and that's a powerful question. I think you'd benefit. I think you'd benefit a lot if you spent a few minutes with me for us to, for you to really understand where your current estate is. And, that the market is very sensitive to that question. And why do I say that? I say that because there's a lot of things that are happening within our country right now that are waking people up, that are getting people's attention, like the two hurricanes, 2 to 3 weeks ago. Those are people that had no clue how their lives were going to change within just a few days. Some of them a few minutes. They had no clue. And here it comes. And people died. And it's going to be years. Sometimes some of those people never recover. So we have that going on. We have the uncertainties that are being, pointed out in our own country every day. So many uncertainties that, they're thinking about, things that they used to not think about. Every day, we hear about somebody that has some name recognition that died every day. And it's whether it's a sports or that someone's name that's out there pops up every day. I think yesterday, I know there was more than one, but those things happen, which to me is just another reminder that we don't know what the next moment holds. We really don't. And there's a story behind that that I shared with Randy last night, and I'll close, when we're finished later today, I'll tell you, what I mean and why that statement is so important to me, and knowing that you just never know what the next moment holds. So that special needs market is a huge market. So we'll take the next question. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, if there's another question out there, go ahead and ask it. If not, I've got a couple, but go ahead. I want to hear from you.
They're scrambling to see who can ask it the first one.
And Carter, thank you. That was a great question.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask one.
Okay.
Can you tell us of the experience that your licensees are having with the free trials?
Yes. And in order for me to explain the experience we're having with free trial, I have to give you some background. It's always, understanding it. So the idea of a free trial was something that I came up with about 8 or 9 years ago. And it all came from some experience training that I'd had back when I was in my 20s, which was a few years ago, when I learned of a closing technique in sales called the puppy dog close. And that close was, if you want to get rid of a puppy dog, get someone to take it home for the weekend and take care of it for you, and then go back and try to take it away. It's like, no, that puppy dog now is part of their family. It actually also was used in the television industry. I know you can't relate to that one, but I can. Back when TVs first made themselves known, families were afraid of them because it was an electric box sitting in their house that plugged into electric. I know my parents were afraid that anytime we'd leave the house, that TV was always unplugged. It was never plugged in unless we were watching it, because we weren't going to take that chance. I know that sounds stupid, but that's the way people are afraid of things that they don't understand. And so people don't understand estate planning. You didn't know I was getting there from an old TV set.
That's okay.
But that was it. So the TV industry, they would give people a TV for the weekend so that they could take it home and watch it. And then they couldn't take it out because the kids in the neighborhood, everybody kind of gets addicted to it. So that's where the whole idea of the free trial came in. It's like, hey, wait a minute, let's take away the barrier to entry. That's that door, right? Take it away by just saying, hey, take this free trial. There's no credit card needed. It'll give you the experience of it, and away you go. So I literally, in my brain, I thought, this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. How can this not work? This is a numbers business. If I give away 1,000, and if I only get 1%, well, whoa, that's 10. Well, how many 1,000 do I want to give away? A lot. So that was how my mind thought it through. So when we rolled it out, we got people excited. Now, keep in mind, this was years ago, so we didn't have the size nor the magnitude that we have today. But in fact, a family estate is bigger than we were as a company back when we came out with. So I'm just being transparent with you. So I threw it out there, and I told my partner Dean, because it took about 3 months to build it. I mean, and that 3 months in development is not cheap. So I'm all excited about it. It's like, all right, we put it out there and nothing happened. We started a flurry of free trials, no sales. So then I started talking to people. It's like, what are you doing? Said, well, I just sent them out. You said just do like direct mail or email, just send them out, and they're going to line up and come in, and they're not lining up and coming in. In fact, it takes a lot of work. It's work just giving away the free trials. So we know what happens to agents when work gets in the way. When work gets in the way, the agent goes away. So, but I'm just saying that. I know you don't. When the work shows up, we knuckle down and so nobody was using it. So I just told my partner Dean, I said, sorry about that, partner. I thought for sure that was a no-brainer. Well, it was. I had no business even thinking about it, but I did. So this just goes along, and occasionally something would happen and one would come in, and then all of a sudden, this was maybe, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, someone in the IT department reached out to me and said, Frank, have you noticed what's going on with these free trials? And I said, no. What do you mean? Well, we've got this one agent out there that's issuing a lot of free trials. Well, that was news. I was like, oh, really? What? And they're converting. it's like within a few hours or a day after he issues, they convert to a paid account. And I was like, really? That's interesting. I wonder how that's working. So I reached out to this person and and I said, what are you doing? And he said, why you asked me? I said, well, I'm just curious. So what are you doing? He said, why should I tell you? Right? He was, he didn't want to give away his trade secret. Well, he did. He's now he's a big white label partner of ours. He said, Frank, this is the biggest no-brainer on the planet. And that is, it's kind of like that Capital One, bank card, the biggest no-brainer in the world or whatever. Always get these wild ideas pop in my mind if they had a little bit of humor here and there to keep us all awake and on track. So anyway, he says, I said, how? He said, I just asked one question. And that is, do you want the government's plan or your own plan? It's like, Randy was pointing out, I think it'd be worth a little bit of your time. It's the same way. It's just how you say it. And so this person says, hey, which plan are you signed up for? And very few people know what that means. So what it does is it opens the mind, it's curiosity. And curiosity, psychologically speaking, is one of the most powerful touch points in the brain. It's powerful. People are curious. What's that? So, I mean, it's just the nature of how our minds work. So it got him into a position where he could explain how the government plan works. And he doesn't just say the probate court, he explains it step by step by step. And when he's done explaining, then they're going, wow, I never knew that. So an informed mind is a much easier mind to communicate with. Would you not agree that? An informed mind is much easier to talk to than an uninformed mind, because an uninformed mind will always say, oh, I know what you mean, when at the end of the day, they really don't, but they don't want to admit it. Now, me, on the other hand, if you're trying to explain something to me and I don't get it, I'm going to make you stay there until I finally get it, because I don't want to go out there and make a fool of myself. And where I'm leading to with that is that many of our licensees, many of you, don't go out there and start talking about it because you don't want to make a fool of yourself. I get it. I understand what holds us back.
I'm out. Use an agenda. Go ahead.
You see, there you go. Okay, see, you just stopped my mind. I was on the flow, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So this is back to that free trial. And so once it's done, then he says, and here's how it works. So he explained, if you just say the only way to keep your estate out of probate court is through a living trust, if you leave it right there, you're setting a trap. Why? Because they may say, oh, that's okay. But they don't, when they're doing their pillow talk at night, going to sleep, it's like, do you know how that works? How is it that a trust keeps your estate out of probate court? And where there's lack of understanding is where fear begins to creep in. It's like, well, I'm not fully informed here. I don't know. So they have to understand a trust keeps an estate out of probate court because it is a written contract that specifically addresses what probate court does. And I'm going to have more conversation about that a little bit later when we get into, well, can a trust do this? Can a trust do that? Can it do this? Can it do that? So I want to create a good baseline understanding for you as to what does a trust really do? And when we really get a good understanding of that, it helps us better explain to a client why why you don't want to put all these conditions into a trust. So that's another topic that we'll address in a few minutes. So once he goes through that, then he says, now that they understand, now they agree that, yeah, no, I would prefer to have my own plan. He gives them a free trial. But here's how he gets into the free trial. He's already started it. That's the key. What do I mean? He knows who he's going to have a meeting with before he meets with them. So it's not just someone that walked in. He knows he has a name, right? He knows today's date. So he goes in and he sets up a free trial for that person, but he uses his email address. Why? Because now the email message that you have a free trial goes to him. Okay, this is key. So he gets it The client doesn't, but it's in the client's name. So now when he's with the client, before he even gets to them, he opens it up. So this is the reason why I always encourage people, set yourself up a 30-day free trial if you haven't done it, and go through it so that you understand the process. It's the identical process as to when someone buys the plan. It asks them to accept the end user license agreement. It asks them to name their plan. It asks them for the date. It asks them for the password. It goes through those questions. So he answers all of those. So now he's able to actually log into the interview. Are you with me? He's already logged into the interview as though he is John and Mary Smith. And he starts filling it out with the information that he already knows. And then he saves it. So now he's with the client. He issues them a free trial, which is really opening up the one that he already started. Are you following me? It's already started. So it's not something that he sent to them that they are going to punch around with. It's a part of his process. So now they're like, wow, how'd you do that? And he said, I just went ahead and set this up. I could have sent it to you, but you wouldn't have known what it was all about. And so I just went ahead and set it up, and here it is. And this is how simple it is. So he then kind of punches through it, kind of a quick overview, and they see it. He says, you know what? We've already completed some of it here, and you've already told me that you preferred having your own plan versus the government plan. Remember, that's the question. He gets them to commit to that. At least it doesn't mean they're going to buy it from him. It may mean they go to a law firm. It may mean they do whatever they're going to do. But the main thing is they have acknowledged the fact that having their own plan is their preference over having the government's plan, which is back to the agenda. So this is where his conversion is about 83%. 83%. Now, does that mean that he gets them all right then? No, but he has put them on a track. He knows when they're ready to say, okay, let's just do it. He knows that. But if it's not quite there, then he keeps them on that track. He gives them access to the free trial, and then he follows up with them within a day or two. He doesn't let it linger. And his reason for following up in a day or two, and this is real, is because he emphasizes we never know what the next moment holds. And I'm telling you, we are big enough today as a company that it's very seldom that a week doesn't pass and we hear a story from somewhere in the United States of a family that started a plan and didn't finish it and something happened. I promise you, we hear that a lot. That is a testimony to how big we are as a company now. It may have been 2 or 3 years before we ever got our first one. It was pretty slow going. So if you think your business is slow going, let me tell you something about slow going. I can tell you a story about slow going after you've put a couple of $1 million into something. That's when you really identify with fast versus slow. So anyway, that is one approach. The average across the country is about 33%. How do I know? Because we track it. I can literally predict each month pretty close, accurate, how many sales we're going to have from the numbers of free trials that are given out. I can just off of that piece of our business. We call them an upgrade from a free trial as compared to someone that doesn't do a free trial and just purchases a plan. So when I'm looking at all the free trials, I can predict just in that category, okay, we're going to get this many sales, roughly speaking. So that's the experience. And it again comes down to me. Would I use free trial? Have I used it? Yes. I'm such a believer, and I know Randy is too, and many of you are, that getting to a person saying, yes, let's do it, is something that happens more times than not. Because when I'm talking to someone, and when I'm hoping you're talking to someone, you're talking with conviction, and they feel it, they sense it, and they just want to do it. They just want to get this done. As Kathy said, it's legacy, and people can sense when you're coming from your heart. And that goes back to what I said earlier, and that is when you're doing the right thing, you can't miss. You just can't miss. Next question.
Well, one thing, Frank, I would like to tell everybody my version of that, my viewpoint of that. If you issue a free trial and your prospect opens it up and they're looking at it, and if you stop right there and go automatically on your agenda and you say, you know, before we go any further, so I can be a better advisor, I need to draw your family tree. And if you'll just draw that family tree at that point, they'll be able to point out, when you look at that family tree, they'll be able to point out who their trustors, you know who their trustors are going to be, who their trustees are going to be, who they want for their power of attorney for finances, who they want for their power of attorney for health care. They'll be able to point all that out. There's so many of you that want to do Zoom calls and phone calls. If you use your free trial appropriately, you can set the stage and you can close the case on the phone. Some of you are trying to sell from 2,000 or 3,000 miles away. If you want a strong back end sale, you'll get them to know a strong understanding of their trust and understand the need for funding. And if you can do it from 3,000 miles away, you can do it from a half a mile away. And then you get the opportunity to go in and do the back end sale. So what Frank said is absolutely true. If you're going to use the free trial, just use it right, but make it fit your personality. So both ways work. But if I was going to do a free trial, I would be sure that prospect had a copy of the agenda so that they would know what we're going to do and would follow it through. It just gives clarity. It gives that way, if you get off track, you can always go back to your agenda. So let's let somebody else ask another question before I do. I'm going to give you about 10 or 15 seconds to claim the spot there.
Randall, we have a question in the chat.
Okay, go ahead.
Tony asks, if you have started the free trial with agent's email, how do you get it converted to their email address so they can move forward in the process after they have had some pillow talk?
So when you are doing the interview, you're able to put your email in there. So that would be the email address that they would, and when you hit that, when you save it, then it changes the email address, on that particular case. And, again, it all comes back to the individual. It would be good for the person to explain, here's why I did this. I went ahead and set this up just to show you, exactly how it can be done. And I can issue you a separate one if you would like for me to. So it's very easy for you to do that. See, it's a free trial. We don't need a credit card. So then you could go into, now that what you've done is you've led the horse to water and you've gotten them to want to drink through the agenda, right? So now you could literally issue them another free trial if they really wanted it at that point, or you sense that would be the right thing to do. That would be a very easy way to do that. And I want to speak about this tree, draw the tree. I love it. And to me, seeing is believing. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So I can sit there and pontificate about a family and their estate from now on, right? But to put it right in front of them, I think is a very powerful sales aid. I think it drives home the message. It's a beautiful concept, and showing people, how that works. It's like we're going to be producing some infomercials very soon. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by that. Not like what you see on TV, okay? But like what you see on TV. But they're just going to be for you to use in your business. So for you to be able to show clients, how these various things work. So there'll be, and it won't be 30 minutes, okay? It'll be 2-3 minutes or whatever. And one of the strategies, concepts that we're working on will be a family, just envision this now, a family with little kids, right? And little kids are great to hear them talk, right? It's like Randy and I were talking last night. A great fun experience is going to watch little kids play little baseball, right? T-ball or whatever, or little flag football. To watch these little kids or whatever it is that little kids are doing is always entertaining. People can't help but be entertained by it. And if they can't be entertained by it, then they probably got such a cold, hard heart that I'm not going to be talking to them anyway. But anyway, you can't help but be attracted to that. But then there's another component to that strategy. When you have kids, and then you add puppies, you put some puppies in there with those kids, and now you've got a real happy scene. You got the puppies licking the kids and the kids laughing and giggling. And so we're going to create a little infomercial of a family, and it's going to be talking about asking a little, let's say a little 10-year-old kid, you know, what is an estate? You follow where I'm going here? So to get these little kids talking about it and what it means is, well, my little dog right here is a part of our family, and I've got a parakeet, Daddy, and so we're going to bring this message alive in a little short infomercial that you'll be able to share with people, whether you send it to them or ever how you, again, these are just ways that you communicate with people to get to touch their heart. And that's really what it's all about. Touch their heart, do the right thing. And the tree is a great example of that. You can put out there exactly everything that's in their family, because very few people really stop and think about it. How many times do we catch ourselves saying, we never stop and thought about it? I never stop and thought about it.
Frank, I call those micro commitments. And if you draw on your family tree, when they get to a certain person in the family, they'll start giving you information that you're not asking for. And all of a sudden, they should tell you that they're interested and that they're moving forward. So every time you can get a micro commitment in your sales presentation, make a note of it, because that means that they're going to self-close if they have enough micro commitments. And that's why when I lead up in my sales presentation, I go, hey, you've done, we understand your family structure and we understand you've got these assets. Don't you think you need the right paperwork to handle it? Very seldom do I ever get a no. Very seldom. And sometimes if someone says, I want to think about it, it's because I skipped something. So if you use the family tree presentation that we teach, you cover all your objections in advance before you ever ask them to move forward. And here's what's going on. Our sales presentation that we teach is superior to the other sales presentations in estate planning. It's intellectually understandable. It's easy to proceed with. And that's what makes it a no-brainer. So you guide them through the family tree. You guide them through the fact that they need to fund it properly. You get to guide them through the fact that they may or may not have long-term care properly set up. You guide them through their income, and then you ask them their health questions. And a lot of times, if you ask health questions in the process of selling a trust, I went to somebody the other day in Crossville, and he said, Randy, I'm going to be honest with you. My doctor said I'm going to see New Year's Eve, but I'm probably not going to see Valentine's Day, and I need this done quickly. But I never would have found them or been able to help them had I not gone in and asked the questions in the right order.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're out there and again, the advantage of doing business with family estate docs is that we teach you how to get in position to close the case and how to get in position to do the back end sale. And the reward for that is all the future sales. So I guess that's all I got to say about that. Go ahead.
Well, that sounds like Forrest Gump. He copyrighted that, so you can't say that.
Well, that's enough said then.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But no, it is. I mean, the goal is to protect the family. I mean, it's the family estates. That's what we're doing. We're in that business, and people don't realize how valuable that is until it comes into play. And again, in this world that we're living in today, because of communication technologies, more and more people are hearing about estate planning than ever. It's on TV, it's on radio, it's on billboards. I mean, I'm here in Tennessee, and I know this happens all across the country. I heard a commercial in Tennessee from a law firm telling people that if you don't have a living trust, you could lose your home. I mean, these are strong statements. Are they exaggerated? Not really, but they're intensified to shock people. Does that happen that often? No. But can it happen? Yes. It is a very litigious world that we live in. Litigious, I like to use that word so I don't forget it. It means people like to sue people, right? And with the growth of personal accident and injury law firms in this country, which, by the way, if you don't see personal accident and injury law firms commercials, then you must be living in the desert or in the forest somewhere, right? Why do they spend so much money advertising? Because they make a ton of money. They do it by suing people. All they have to do is find a reason. And it's happening today with the states where families are fighting with each other and all kinds of things are going on. It is a very, very litigious world and it's happening every day. So families, young adult families that see their parents aging, one of our videos is 6 questions you need to ask your aging parents. They are not offensive questions. But if you don't know what those 6 questions are, then you need to study this business a little bit more. These are trigger points. These are micro decision points that you're touching on. So yeah, it is so very important. I'm going to take a pause to take a question. If you don't hit me with a question within a few seconds, then I'm going to get into explaining something else to you that I know I know you need a little bit more clarification on, but before I get into it, I want to take the next question.
Lisa, are there any more questions?
Frank, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Go ahead.
me or is it someone else?
It's you.
All right, thank you. Please make me understand here. When you're creating that free trial, you're saying put your email address in. You can create it for that person or that couple, but put your email address in, have it sent back to your email address, then go in and put some of the information in. Then you can send them the login information of what you've already created. Is that the correct process?
That's absolutely correct. And see, it not only applies to the free trial. I know licensees, agents that when they make a sale, they use their email address. And the reason they use their email address for the client is because they want to shepherd the entire process. They want to lead it step by step, follow the agenda, if you will. They want to be in control of it. They don't want the client to say, I never got that info, what happened? And then they find it in their spam. So again, and this comes down to how you look at your own business. If you want to achieve at the highest level, that means you sharpen all your edges. So putting your email address, even when you make a sale, now it comes to you, and then that email address can be changed over to them, because it's their name that's going on it. And that's how that works. So yes, you're correct. That's correct.
Okay, so you could do one of 2 things there too, right? You could also blind cover copy or cover copy that to their email address, or you could forward that email once it comes to you to them.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
You can't blind copy them because our system is not set up to blind. But yeah, you could forward it to them. And again, and this is so good. I'm so glad you asked this. I can't tell you how many times we get hit in support with my client lost their login information. Do you have it? And the answer is the username is the key point. We do have the technology to reset the password, but I can't tell you how many times people say they forgot their username. They lost their username. So I always encourage, as a part of your relationship with your clients, create a little note to yourself, a little file. I mean, we have files for everybody. So you should have a file on your computer for each of your clients, and you put in there, this is their username, this is their password, this is a copy of their receipt, because people say, I never got a receipt. You get a copy of it also to put that in their file. This way, you become their go-to person. When they need something, they can come to you, and they don't come to you and you say, well, I don't know, because the less you know, the more they don't know, which makes the relationship not as deep as it could be. And what you want is a deep relationship here, because it will bring you more referrals than you can even imagine. So, which is what has grown this company. But that's a great point that you made. Thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free to ask.
All right. So this might trigger something. We get lots of questions about my client wants to do this. My client wants to do that. Can we do this? Can we do that? In other words, when they look at their estate and everything that they've got in their estate, the tree, if you will, they start then trying to analyze it and say, yeah, but I want this person to get this, but, and so the buts is when the rules can change. You follow that? So, and so we get these things, can we do this? Can we do that? The answer is anything can be written in a document. As long as you put the conditions that qualify that document to be a contract. A contract is a legal document, which means you can take it to court and you can prove it. It's a legal contract. It can also be challenged. Any contract can be challenged. So that means you want to make sure that the contract is solidly done legally so that if it ever is challenged, it will stand on its own merit. So you can put anything into a contract. The trust is a contract. All right. Call it a trust. I heard a little girl, and this was beautiful, say that, I know why they call it a trust, Daddy. And he said, why is that? It's because you're showing us how much you love us. You're entrusting all this and so you're letting us know that you trust us. And I thought that was a beautiful definition given by a little girl to her parents about that's why they call it a trust. It's because you're trusting us, and that's a wonderful thing. So it's a contract. You can put anything in there. So when we were working with the attorneys, now I'm going to get into where it really hopefully will make sense to you. When we were working with the attorneys and building the software, we discussed the different scenarios. We discussed being married multiple times. We discussed having stepchildren. We discussed, disinheriting kids. Special needs. We went through all of these scenarios. And what they directed us to think about was keep it simple. And it's not simple from a standpoint of it's a template. It's simple in that we're trying to avoid some bombs down the road when these families start blowing up down the road, when kids see and find out how it's been written up in the trust. And that is something these attorneys drove home to us big time. They said, anything you put in this can be a bone of contention down the road. What does that mean? That means that person that's got that bone of contention can go hire an attorney and they can file a lawsuit against that trust. So then what does that mean? That means then that the family has to defend the trust. Well, what does that mean? It means that it's going to cost the family a lot of money to do that. Well, what does that mean? It means they're going to win. Why? Because a trust is a contract, and you would literally have to prove fraud in order to bust up a trust. And that's just the way the law works. It's a contract. And what voids a contract? Fraud. A criminal activity or fraud violates and voids a contract. A trust is not a criminal act, and it does meet all the conditions of a contract. So when your clients start asking you, well, can it do this? Can it do that? The answer is, yeah, but let's look for a way to accomplish the goals in the interview. Why? Because it is a simplistic model for how to have an estate settled. That's the reason it's built as a simplistic model, is because it will create less likelihood that some family member is going to get twisted because of the way something's done. Let me give you an example. Well, I'm going to leave this piece of real estate to this one child. And with the conditions that they never do this, they never do that, they never married this person, they create conditions around that piece of property going to that person. Well, as soon as you start putting those conditions in there, you're creating bumps in the road that, it just gives a hole for someone to dispute. So this is another opportunity for you to discover a product. I'll give an example. This happened, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. A farmer wanted to leave his farm to his grandson, and he had a lot of stuff. And so this one farmer wanted to leave it to a grandson. Perfect. But he wanted certain conditions around his grandson getting it. Certain conditions. Can you do it? Yep, you can do it. We can have it all written up in an amendment. We can get all that stuff written up. It's a couple $100 or whatever, not a big deal. So yeah, as we always say, we can write anything and make it a contract. Yes, we can write it up, but does that mean it's going to make people happy? No. Does it mean that those unhappy people could create an issue? Yes. So let's keep it as simple as we can. We don't want troubles down the road when you're not even going to be around to explain it. You know, you're gone. You're yesterday's memory. So, and that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. So this gentleman, the agent licensee, said, you know, what you should consider is, I think it may have been it was some type of an investment, life insurance, that he set up for his grandson, to give his grandson that gift while he was still living, versus conditional upon his passing. And everybody was happy. The agent was happy because they made a very nice commission. The grandfather was very happy because he saw waters that were going to stay calm. And the grandson was happy because, thank you, Grandpa. That was pretty cool. So again, I just stress that a trust, it's a living trust. Everything that we put in there, can you have contingencies? This is where, again, when people start thinking about contingencies, well, I want this person to be a contingent, but if that doesn't work out, I want this person. So you keep going downstream with it. And the point there is that contingents have no value until you die. The person that you've left as the beneficiary passes away before you do. That's the only time contingencies even come into play. It means that your beneficiary had to pass away. So if they passed away before you do, you're still alive. You can go in, you can make changes. So you can add things at that point in time.
Frank,
Go.
you mentioned the word amendment. Can you tell us the difference between an amendment and a restatement?
So an amendment means that you're creating a new document, a separate document to the document that we've already got. The document that we've already got is the trust. It's a contract. So now I want to add something to that trust. It's an amendment. So it's a separate document. A restatement is taking the trust that we've got now and making changes, which an amendment makes changes typically, but I can eliminate the need for an amendment by doing a restatement, by just simply going into the interview, making the changes that I need to make, that I want to make, and then saving those changes and generating a new document and getting that document executed. Now, the one thing that does have to happen when we're making a restatement, we have to add that language to it, which means that, let's say that you've got a client, and we've got this happening, which is pretty cool, actually. People that bought our estate plan 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and they're really happy that we're still around. So they come back and they say, hey, I need to make some changes. So they can make those changes in a document that they bought 10 years ago for nothing. It cost them nothing. All they do is log in, make the changes in the interview, let us know so that we can add that language to it, that this trust is being restated as the previous trust, from the previous trust, and then we just get it generated. Now, we have to add that restatement language. We have to do that. So you go through support at Family Estate Docs, and we add it. All we need to know is what is the name of the trust. And so we add that language and we make it a restatement as of today. This document is being changed from the original document. So that's how it's done. You don't have to really change any funding because the trust name is still the same. Everything's still the same. The only thing that's going to be different would be some of the language that's in the trust that may have changed. So that brings to question, when do you need to do a restatement? Well, first of all, anytime that someone is coming into family estate docs and they already have a trust, well, the trust didn't come through us, so we have to restate that other trust. That's like a brand new sale, but we add the restatement language. When else would you want to do a restatement when the document is through us? Well, one thing would be any significant change. And this is covered in the training manual. What is a significant change? A significant change is not necessarily moving from one part of town to the next. You're in the same state, or even if you move from one state to a next, it's not really a significant change. But if you want to restate it, you can. It just means you got to get it signed and witnessed and notarized again. But things that do require restatement would be if you're changing a beneficiary, or if you're changing a contingency, or if you're changing a trustee, or if you're changing a bequest. A bequest is a change because it's changing something in the estate. Something in the estate is going out to somebody or some organization or whatever. That's a change. So beneficiaries, a change. Adding children, disinheriting children, all of those things, conditions, putting in special needs, doing the joint trust. So I'm going to change the ages on the joint trust provision from 25, 30, and 35. I need to change those ages. So any of those things is I want to change the percentages on the beneficiaries. All of these things are significant changes to the trust. They require restatement. That is such a value to our clients that they just don't get through law firms. They don't. Law firms tell them, hey, if you ever need anything, let us know, but they don't. The law firm's going down the road. When you hit the road, they hit the road too. They're on to the next one. They have no incentive really to be working, following up with you. They leave it up to you. They're just looking for the next one. This again is part of the relationship building with you because you have got an invested interest in this client. This is where you are explaining to them the role that you play in their life. It's an important role, but they don't understand that importance unless you make it clear to them. And that's one thing that I believe very, very strongly about. And that is, number one, you've heard me say it already, just do the right thing. People that we work with in this company, and I'm happy to say this, not proud, I don't like to say pride or proud, but I'm just happy to say that I believe that the reputation that we are all creating within the marketplace all over the country is a great reputation. I think we're all doing an outstanding job in letting people know that we really do care, that we really are out to help them do the right thing. So that's, I just wanted to get into a little bit more detail with you about what are you really doing here when you're helping a family set this up. You don't want to lead them to believe that making it complicated is good. You don't want to lead them to believe that. But then you also don't want to practice law. You don't want to tell them, no, you can't do that. No, you don't want to be rendering opinions on anything that they want to do. You can go right to what it says in the trust, and it will educate you and educate the client on what you can and cannot do. And that's all they need to, it's like the irrevocable option. That's a can do or cannot do. It's a personal decision. It's not me telling you what to do. It's me just educating you on this is how it works. This is it. That's it. This is how it works. If you want to name the joint trust over ages, this is how it works. It doesn't mean that one child is going to get more than another. It just means that everybody's going to be taken out of their bucket. So when your bucket goes dry, it's dry. So same thing with special needs. They get what comes in their bucket. So everybody's treated fairly, and that's the way that it works. So next question. And the other, I'm going to say this about probate court. If you don't believe in your heart of hearts that what we're doing, that families really do need it. They really do need it. They don't want to go down the path of probate court. If you just really believe that, it's pretty easy to convince someone. It really is. It really is a no-brainer. It's like, No, you don't understand. When they say, well, let me think about it, no, you don't understand. You don't want to go down that path. You do not want to put your family through that. You don't want to do it. So the more you drive that home, it's like the more people hear things, more times they hear it, the more they start believing it, right? It's like you don't want to go down that path. Here's why. You don't want to be practicing law. You don't want to be asking to review documents. You want to stay the track on what we do. We provide comprehensive estate planning. Here's how we do it, and here's why we do it. But the practice and law thing, that was a big concern that we had 15 years ago. Why? Because 15 years ago, we lived in a significantly different country than we do today. Significantly different as it relates to law, especially online access to law. 15 years ago, it was just starting to happen. LegalZoom had been around for a while. Rocket Lawyers have been around. So these companies have been around. So it was out there, but there was still a lot of uncertainty about what you can and cannot do. And we were very sensitive to that. We were investing not $495 to get a license to do, we were investing millions. We had to be certain. We sat with our attorneys. We drove this thing. I'll never forget the day I asked the attorney that was just working on that, Adam, are you sure? He said, Frank, we can't be any sure. We're okay. We stay this track. We're okay. So that's where we started. Where are we today? Well, we're 15 years down the road. We are pretty well known out there. Have we been looked at? Yes, we've been looked at. Has anything come of it? No, nothing has come of it. Why? Because it is becoming more mainstream understanding that you do not have to be a lawyer to get a living trust. You do not have to be a lawyer to get an estate plan. You do not have to be a lawyer to do that. You can do it yourself. Why? Because how? Through software. You can do it. How independent? This is where the difference between going direct to the consumer, like a LegalZoom, versus us. How confident are you in you doing it all yourself? Dealing with people that you don't know through the internet. How confident are you? That's where we stand head and shoulders above everybody, because we put someone in the mainstream with them, that's there with them, that creates a level of field of understanding, that builds understanding, that builds comfort, that builds assurance that you're making the right decision, because I'm going to stay with you to make sure we get this done. Those are things that they don't get anywhere else. How do I know? Because we know, we've been told by insurance companies that have vetted us, that have looked at wills and trust, and we check all the boxes. Where they check a few, we check them all. So that's just a big thing. And the greatest compliment to me, anyway, not only are we successful, but now we're hearing from lawyers. I told Randy last night, just last week, we got 2 communications, one from California. This was where an agent sold an estate plan to a client in the LA area, somewhere in that area. I don't know where. And that person, they decided that they were going to go get it checked out by a law firm. So they went to an LA law firm and they took all of our documents and they had to pay. But their mind was that they wanted a good mindset that they did the right thing. And they were confident that if that law firm gave them a reason why this wasn't good, that they could get their money back. Why? Because they would come barking at us, loud. And what are we going to do? If somebody can show us that what we've done is wrong, I guarantee you, we give their money back. If they can show us that what we did is wrong, we give their money back, which we have it happen, but it's always where the agent did something wrong. It's not us. And I'm not bad mouthing anybody. Please understand that. It's just getting people to understand. This law firm went through it, came back to their clients and gave them a written statement that the documents complied with all laws of the state of California. Endorsement. Boom. They just made another investment to get that peace of mind, but they felt good about it. And they came back and told the agent, said, hey, this is what we did. The agent contacted our white label partner over in California. It was like, yippee, this is great. It was either that day or the very next day, I get another phone call from Pennsylvania. Same scenario. A family took it to a law firm in Pennsylvania, same thing. And even more complimentary is now we've got attorneys that are contacting us. Just last week, one in Arkansas. Kathy, you're still out there, young lady? She may have had to jump off. Anyway, she just talked to an attorney down in Arkansas last week that heard about us at an attorney's conference. At an attorney's conference, heard about other attorneys talking about us. Now, why are they talking? They're talking about us for one of two reasons. The first reason is they don't like us. Why? Because we are thundering through their territory. They don't like us. Well, what is that causing a lot of estate planning lawyers to do? They have become specialists in probate court because they can make more money in probate court than they can doing a trust. That's the reason probate court is so expensive. They charge a lot of money because it's a pain and it's a painful burden of their time. And it's all about billable hours. Lawyers are all about billable hours. That's it. Do you ever hear, and I would say that to a client, would you ever hear me talk to you about billable hours? You will never, ever, ever hear me talk to you about billable hours. My time is your time to make sure we do the right thing. Lawyers are all about billable hours. So the software that they use is expensive, and it's restricted to certain areas of law. And then they find out about hours, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is. I talked to one in San Diego, California, an estate planning attorney. 35 years he's been practicing in San Diego. And he subscribed to our platform probably 2 years ago and has referred other attorneys to us. And he still has the other software from the other company, but he likes to use ours when he's doing estate plans in other states. There you go. So, yeah, these are tremendous, tremendous compliments. And these are little things that should even make you more confident in that what we're doing is the right thing. But never put yourself out there to get, when someone says, what do you think? Always go back to education. All I think is understanding the terminology. And in just about every day, I will Google a term in this business to learn more about it. Because I can Google any question about estate planning, any question, and I'm going to get probably 20 attorneys giving me an opinion just online, right? So I can do that all day long. I can cite examples all day long of what other people have to say that are actually lawyers. They can actually write it and sell it to you. I can't do that. I've got software that does that for me. I can provide the software to you so that we can get your estate plan done. And for that, you will pay me. And that's how it works.
Right. Can you go into a little bit about, we suggest that they charge $1,995. The licensee makes $1,200. What in the EULA, can you go into a little bit about, if I bought that trust from Family Estate Docs and 10 years from now, I want to change it. What, if I'm the buyer, what are my economic responsibilities?
What do you have to do?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in our world, all you have to do is log in to the platform, log into your plan and make those changes and then add the restatement language. Now, right today, we add that restatement language. I will tell you that that is an enhancement that's coming in our next release. And our goal is to get that next release out by the end of this year. But the purpose of it will be for the client or you working with the client to click a button to say, this is a restatement. So then the software will add that language for you versus us having to do it on our end.
There's gonna be a fee for that?
No. So the only fee is staying subscribed to the vault. The vault is the key to the documents. So if someone doesn't subscribe to the vault, then they don't have the key to the documents. but the documents are still there on the servers. So they don't go away. Those are there. They're company, it's there. We own it. So people ask, how much is the fee? $29.95 a year. I've never been billed for it. Nobody's been billed for it. And the reason is because that is another build part of our development, and it's a big one to set it up for automatic billing and all of that. It's not just click the button and add a Word document. It doesn't work that way. So we prioritized other things in our software rather than charging $29.95 a year right now. So once we turn that feature on, then everybody will be notified and everybody will be given the opportunity to go ahead and pay their $29.95. There won't be any back charges. We're not going to do that for people that's had it for 3 years or 5 years or what. We're not going to do that. It's just, they'll just pick it up from where they go and go. If they ever don't do it, and then they come back and they need to access the documents in the future, which means the $29.95, they would just bring it current. So again, once we turn this switch on, which hopefully, and I have to say, hopefully, I'm always optimistic. When you're working in the technology development space, it's nothing certain. It's always a moving target. And that's the only frustrating thing about being in a technology business. It's never a specific target. It's moving all the time. So, and we're having to move with it. But I'm told that we should get there within the next few months. Goal would be January 1st. Then everybody will be given notice. But if they don't do it and they skip 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and then they need to do it, it would just be bringing their account current. So if they skip 3 years, it'd be 3 times $29.95. We turn the switch on and they go, and they'll be able to access the documents. So that's the fees for making changes down the road.
Okay. So another question that I have, and I get asked a lot, is there a fine line or a moving target when it comes to using an A or an AB trust?
Boy, that's a good one. It used to be that an AB trust had more application than it does today. And what that means is because of the federal tax on death, used to be, I'm thinking a couple of decades, it used to be like 500,000. I'm thinking around 500,000 for an individual or $1 million for a couple, something. It was not a big number. So that meant that there were a lot of estates that fell into that federal tax on death. Okay. So now it made sense for me to have an AB trust. Let's say I got an estate worth $2 million. Well, we already know that a federal death tax is pretty high. So I've got an estate worth $2 million and let's say it's $1 million. So I'm going to get an AB trust so that now my trust between me and my wife, our estate is going to split when I pass away. Okay. So my half of the estate doesn't fall into her half of the estate, and I can distribute out my half of the estate and get it out, that $1 million. You follow me? So it clears out, and then the B part stays for the surviving spouse. So now we've avoided that federal death tax because of the AB. Now it's a more complex trust because of what I'm just explaining. There's accounting that has to be done. So it has more expenses when it comes to settling it down the road than a standard trust. But it's insignificant as compared to the savings and the protections that an AB trust can provide that a standard trust doesn't. Now that's the scope of it. Today, we're looking at a federal death tax for a husband and wife of around 25, 26 million. And that's where it is. So unless a family is really flirting in that area of estate value, then there's no great need for an AB trust. There's no great need. Now, people may say, well, we're previously married. I've got stuff by I've got this. I want to keep it separate. You can do that with the standard trust by checking the box. We have separate property that we want to keep separate. You can do it. And it's essentially accomplishing the objectives of the AB, except with the tax thing, because it's not splitting it in two, it's keeping it. But as long as that federal death tax is high, then there's not going to be a great implication on most of the families that we're going to be helping and working with down the road. Now, is that federal death tax going to change? We've been told that it's going to sunset in end of 2025. That's, I think it's when it's set to sunset in Congress, and it's going to change. So what is that change going to be? We don't know. We can speculate. Speculation has it dropping down to, maybe 10 million, for both husband and wife. We don't know. It's just a lot there, but it's pretty sure that there will be some changes. When that happens, we've got the AB. We were told a long time, you don't really need it. We said, no, we're going to have it. And so we've got it in there, and one of these days it'll probably have some value. I would say out of the estate plans we do, maybe 5% are ABs. I'm just guessing, just based on the numbers, maybe 5%. So does that answer that question?
Yeah, let's hear from the crowd, see if there's any other questions.
There was another question in the chat. Gary asked, would it be challenged in what court, not probate rights?
So if I'm understanding, a challenge to a living trust would have to be in probate. It's a probate court document. It's not, it's now some municipalities, and this depends on states and counties and everything that goes along with government. They may not have a probate court that they call a probate court. They may just call it their district court or their whatever, but that's where the probate cases are heard. So every jurisdiction has a court that hears probate cases. What is a probate case? A probate case is any estate that goes beyond the minimum requirements for no probate. What do I mean by that? You can Google any state and ask what are the minimum requirements for probate, and you can find out. Some states, they call it easy. It's a quick one, 50,000. So if the entire state's not worth at least 50,000, we have a simple, just fill the form, bang, bang, bang. You still have to pay a fee, but you don't have to go through the whole probate process. So where does that apply to you? I'm going to suggest to you that if someone doesn't have an estate of at least 50,000, they probably aren't a suspect, much less a prospect, because they don't have the wherewithal financially to look at opportunities that you could provide them. So,
Frank, right
okay.
there. If you follow my process and you say, hey, I think you would benefit from a conversation with me about your current plan, and you do the family tree asset positioning go-to first interview, you're going to find out whether you need to close them and sell them an estate plan when you do page 3. You're going to find out if they don't have many assets. Well, don't try to, you can look at them and say, maybe you don't need an estate plan. And people appreciate that. You probably get just as many referrals from that. But if you follow my process, you will know those things before you actually try to close the case.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, so in a probate case is where there is no trust. So all estates have to go to probate, and that's the probate court process. So you have to go down, you got to file a petition for probate, which is similar to filing a lawsuit. You have to pay the fee. Some states it's, $75. Some states it's $400. It varies state to state to state. And then there's a process that you have to go through. It can take months to years, depends on where it's at. So it ends up in that courtroom. The person that presides over the court, probate court, doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer. When I heard that, I was like, what? You mean to tell me a judge can be a non-lawyer? Yes. Yes, they can be appointed. Yes. And do they do it? Yes. It happens a lot. Typically, they are estate planning lawyers that are asked to come sit in probate court. So are any of them ever biased? You tell me. I don't ever step over that line. You tell me. Does anything corrupt ever happen in probate court? I don't know. You tell me. So what's an example of something that might happen that a family may not like? And that would be, well, the will got contested. Oops, now what happens? It's a trial, or there was no will. And so the judge decides that, or the executor of the will, somebody's been appointed as the executor, or there's no will and the court gets to appoint an executor, do you think there's any possibility that whoever's presiding over that court may refer that executor case out to a friend? A friend or a buddy or a company that they know? Do you think that could ever happen? You tell me. The answer is, you tell me. We are human. Does that happen? There's corruption in the society we live in. We know that. So are probate courts non-suspect of corruption? Absolutely not. So again, this is part of my conversation in the, the interview. The agenda is when people understand. How many people know what I just told you? Not too many. Not too many. How do I know? Because I have talked to attorneys that have sat as judge in probate courts, and we've had this conversation. And I've heard other people that have investigated probate courts and uncovered corruption, where they send it out to a trustee company that overcharges the estate to be the success. These things happen. So when I'm talking to a family, it's like, look, you did this, not me. You created an estate of $1 million here. You've got 2 grandkids. You've got you did this, not me. This is your legacy. This is important. This is important for you to do. And I can't stress enough to you that we need to keep this out of probate. This is nobody's business but yours. You are the one that needs to make the decision, not someone that you don't even know or your family doesn't even know or has no control over. This is the only time that you have control. Well, what do you mean the only time? It's the only time we have is now. That's it. Why is this important? So you can see, and I know you sense where I'm coming from here. The reason we're successful as a company is because we believe what we say. We are absolutely sold. I am sold out on this is the best thing I've ever done in my life. The best thing, and I have made millions of dollars doing other things. This is the best thing that I can put my head on the pillow every night and know that I never risked more in my life than I risked to start this company when I was 60 years old. I never risked more than I risked at that point in time. And does that tell you that I knew how big it was at that time? No, but it has grown. It's embedded in me, not because of the money, but because I know how important this is. And because at this point in time in my life, I see a lot of death. I see friends, family. I see a lot. And I came close myself this past summer. So I relate to it. I know when they called it a dead end, that it's a dead end. Okay. I know it's a dead end. There's nothing happening beyond there. Let's take control. As Kathy pointed out, and she had to drop, she texted me. What relates to her so much is legacy. That memory that we leave. And I read this just recently. What's the average time frame that passes when a person passes away? We know it's at the peak. It's celebration. All these things happen. Funeral homes, cemetery. All these things happen. Families are together. How much time passes before the visits to the cemetery start to slow down? How much time really passes and they really start to slow? How much time passes where our memories are vague in the minds of the people that knew us? And people in my life, they didn't know my grandparents. Our memories are short after we leave this planet. So the best thing we can do is leave a great legacy. And I know you know that, or we wouldn't be having this conversation today. I'm sorry to get into that, folks, but I just can't help it. I just know the good that we're doing at the end of the day. So I'm going to shut up and take another question. Hopefully we triggered a question.
Albert, you got a couple.
One, is there a way to do co-attorneys in fact?
So you're talking about a power of attorney, right? Okay. Different terms, same document. The answer is, again, not with our platform. And the reason is because our attorney said you're looking for trouble. When you've got then you've created an issue that the person that's got to honor that power of attorney is questioning who is here. It says that both have to be here.
Or either or.
Either or. So that it just creates a a suspect of like, I don't see this too often. So our attorney said, no, we don't want you to do that. So we don't do that.
Can they do an amendment?
Well, it's not an amendment.
Okay.
It is a different power of attorney. It's a totally an amendment is to the trust. A power of attorney, and this is also good. When you are making changes to the trust, that's an amendment. When you're changing a power of attorney, that's not. You don't have to do a restatement. It's just a matter of going in, changing that document, generating a new document, getting that document signed. You don't need to touch the certificate of trust or the trust. Those two documents stay as they are.
Does that help, Albert?
No.
So
yes,
I'd like to
it's
take
an
it just to
attorney
another
to do it.
scenario. If Albert chose to go to an attorney who would do that, that's okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the trust. It's a totally separate document.
So the one thing though, your power of attorney relies on the definition of disability that is written into the trust.
Mhm.
Should that be stated in the power of attorney?
I can't practice law and tell you that. So see, that's an example right there. See, that would be something that I could jump into just like that, but I won't touch that one. All I know is attorneys can write anything, but I also know that people that have to accept it can refuse it. And that happens a lot.
And I think you had another question on the date.
Okay. I'm redoing an AB trust.
Okay.
That was done and never dated.
And so, okay, clear that up. It was dated at the bottom, but it wasn't saying this is the Billy Joe Bond.
Mistake.
The law firm didn't do it right then.
It was not
He
done.
did it
by-
from Quicken,
Oh, my goodness. Well, we need to take the date at the bottom of we needed some date.
and he's redone it several times. He has rental property in the trust that he acquired at different dates.
That's fine. See, the dating of the trust assets has nothing to do with the trust itself. Two different things. I set up a trust in 2015. I got assets moving in and out of that trust for the rest of my life. Doesn't matter the dates that are associated with real estate, the deeds, the transfer, none of that applies. It's all in the trust.
So all of his deeds in the trust are just the name of the trust.
Right.
But it doesn't say trust dated such and such date. So if I do a restatement, what do I do?
So it's still going to say restated that trust from that date. From
Okay.
that date. So that date that you don't have to change the assets funding. That's all there.
The original date at the bottom of the trust that they signed to notarize, is that the date of the trust if you didn't put the date on the title?
On the deed to the property?
No, on the trust. So he has a name,
Yeah, and it says the date. So, but it's going to be a
Well, it
restatement.
doesn't.
No,
It
it doesn't say the date.
but it is dated at
You
the
know
bottom.
what? In a
It
case,
just says the so-and-so,
but he,
so-and-so AB living trust.
was he able to get it funded, the real estate into that trust?
Yes.
So, okay, so yeah, I would just put whatever date is that,
No, there's no date.
well, then, so
the
this
deed
is a deed preparation, not trust. So if the deed preparer can get that filed at the county recorder's office, it's a done deal. Doesn't matter.
So what is it matters when we do a restatement, do we use the date at the bottom
You
of the
can.
trust?
You can,
You know, if it was dated in 2015,
you can do that.
that would be the date. It'd be the Smith Trust dated what was
Yeah.
on the bottom.
Has nothing to do with the deed. Keep that deed set. That
What would
has,
happen if he just dated it for the day he wrote the trust?
well, again, but you've got properties that's out there that's sitting in a trust that said it was dated back whenever, 2015.
I bet they did. Yeah, I bet they used the date at the bottom of the trust.
Okay, I mean, there's no date in the name on the deed.
So if there's,
It's
so
just
again,
of his
so-
A and B trust with no date.
okay, so, again, as long as it's in the name of that trust, then a restatement in our trust platform, we have to plug a date in it because it won't let you go further. You got to put a date in there. So I would
Okay.
just put the one from the earlier time and then we restate it.
Okay.
You bet.
Uh,
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate your time.
Hey, out there in the internet world, any more questions?
Nothing in the chat, Randall. Gary just said, good answer.
Good. Do you guys have any questions so far? Steve, you have a question? Something that I get asked a lot. When we go down to, well, just go ahead and explain the pour over will.
Okay, that's a good one. What is a pour over will? In our tabs, it says last will and testament. So that's, will again, in our next version, that will say, but when you get into the document, it says it's a pour over will. The pour over will is used for a couple of purposes. Number one, and that is where titled assets were not put into the trust. That could be a bank account, an automobile, a piece of real estate, a safety deposit box. It could be lettered collectibles, like things like some art is lettered and it's registered to people for insurance purposes. Like, you know, we've got jewelry that's insured, so it's titled. Okay, we've got artwork that's insured, so it's titled. So we put those titled assets into the trust to make it clear that this is the asset that we want to go to this person. So we leave something out and now it's here in the estate. What do? It goes to probate. The pour over will instructs the judge, again, whoever's presiding over probate court, it instructs them to pour this asset into the trust. So then the trust would distribute it. So it's different than a probate court where there's a will, because the will has to go through a proof stage. Is this really the real will? So it can be contested. The trust is it's a contract. So the pour over will, if I had to take that pour over will into probate court, I would say, Your Honor, here's the certificate of trust. Here's the pour over will that has this lettered asset. Let's say it's I know this one because it happened, a safety deposit box at a bank that they forgot to put into it. Here you can see it's registered to the person that's in this. We need to give that bank authorization so that the family can open that safety deposit box. Would you give me an affidavit of probate court? And the judge says yes. Why? Because the pour over will gave them that instruction. So instructions that come out of probate court are generally speaking referred to as an affidavit from probate. Written proof from probate. This is what you're to do. So I would take that affidavit into the bank or the DMV, Division of Motor Vehicles, whatever, and say, I now have authority to transfer that asset. So that's what a pour over will. The next thing that the next thing that a pour over will does is in the event of a guardian. So the guardianship form is a part of the pour over will. People misunderstand that doing the guardianship form in our platform doesn't imply that person will legally be the guardian. A legal appointment of guardian must be appointed by the court. Again, it's an estate, so it's typically a probate court judge or hearing will approve the guardianship. So if you don't fill out that guardianship form and there is a disabled person in that family, then it has to go through a full guardianship hearing, that alone could be $5 or $10 grand in legal fees. Why so expensive? Because the attorneys that practice guardianship, it's a special area of law. So they charge more money, right? So when you have to go to a guardianship lawyer, they've got you. You know, I need to get this person appointed as a guardian. Okay. It's going to be $5 grand, 10 grand. How do I know? Because it happened to someone in my family. I know they got you. But if you've got that guardianship form that's a part of our platform, I don't need that lawyer. I can take that in. That's proof positive that this person over here appointed this person to be guardian. Now, someone would have to come in and challenge it. And that's, again, it's back to a contract. You know, I appointed this person. I'm dead now. So it really kind of obligates the court to do it. So that's what a pour over will does. That's the full purpose of it. And if you do your job, and obviously things can happen, just surprises or whatever, and something doesn't get taken care of, then, but if you do your job, the likelihood of someone needing to use the power of a will is not going to be that big. What do we have here?
What about digital assets?
Okay,
If I pass away, what
Yeah.
about my email account, my Facebook account?
right. So what we're talking about with digital assets, we live in a world today where some people's assets include a lot of digital assets. It can be a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, whatever it is. It just is what it is. So what you do is you list those in our funding kit under other. The only, which people talk about like it's not the blockchain, but the money, what's the word I'm looking for here? Yeah, the crypto, yeah, cryptocurrency is real, and it's not going away. We don't think it's a fad anymore. So how real is it in the future? We don't know. What do you think? So the way people access crypto assets, any digital asset, they have to be able to have the login information because it's all digital. So you leave those instructions in your funding kit. Or, we say the funding kit, again, this is where people misunderstand. The funding kit is not a part of the trust. We have people say, well, I didn't see in the trust what I said about these assets. No, you don't. You only see the directions that you gave in the trust document. Directions are who's going to get what, when, and how. That's what the trust says. But as far as the assets themselves, we call it the funding kit. The funding kit really is a roadmap. But it's my agenda, if you will, Randy. It's my agenda for making sure that I cover all the areas of that person's asset tree, their family asset. I'm making sure I covered everything. So we flush out each of the questions in the funding kit, cash accounts, bank accounts, CDs, all this, businesses. All of those things are my checklist. I'm just able to go through it and check off each one. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. And then I create my files. I've got my files here. Here's my real estate. Here's my collectibles. Here's all of these things. So my digital assets would be a part of the other part of the funding kit. But again, you could create a document if you wanted to and say, here's all my digital assets. This is the website. This is the URL address. This is my username. This is my password. This is my key to my password. All of those things have to be recorded.
And it leads to the back end sale. And it sets the stage for all future sales because you know what's going on. And that's why when I do the confidential, they don't know me well enough to give me all the accurate numbers. That's why I look at them and I caution them, give me the ballpark. Just give me the ballpark. We'll get to the nitty gritty or the details later on. Okay. We had a question come up, Frank. Do we need a trust banking account before we die?
No, it's a need, must have, required. The answer is no. A trust, again, people get confused on this. Business as usual when you have a trust. In other words, you don't need to get an ID, an EIN number, through the IRS for it. You don't need to do it. Your estate is managed the same way through a trust as it is in your everyday life. You still file income tax returns. You use your social security number. All of those things stay the same. Your assets that are yielding income to you, that are taxable income, they all stay the same. Nothing changes. The trust is just where they're going to be housed, if you will, when it comes to transferring those assets out to other people. So why do I need to open up a bank account for the trust? I don't. I've got my checking, savings. It's all there. And I've got all of those accounts set up that when something happens to me, not if, but when something does happen, I've got a payable on death set up for each of those accounts so that it will then revert over to my trust. So now what happens is the successor trustee comes into the bank or credit union, and they've got the certificate of trust that proves that they have authority now over those assets. And they've got a copy of the death certificate, which they also need. And so now I've got a checking, a savings, I've got all these different accounts at the bank from the person that's deceased. How do I want to simplify it? I'm probably going to open up a trust account. And I'm going to transfer all those accounts into the trust account so that now I can be better accountable and I can manage this to get it out. Do I have to do it? No, it's just a matter of accounting and whatever works best for that person. They have access to the accounts because they can sign on them. It's payable to the trust. But most people will set up a trust account and then they want to know, what about the IRS? Is inheritances, are they taxable? The answer is that's up to the individual that's getting out of the estate. It's a taxable event to them. If everything flushes out of the trust, then when you close out the trust, the estate, you go online to irs.gov and you order an EIN number for the trust. And the IRS gives it to you and you file a final income tax return, which is typically zero. Why? Because everything is moved through it. Everything is transferred out to the beneficiaries or to the bequest. It's all gone. What are the exceptions to that? Here are the exceptions. Let's say you've got joint trust for children, or you've got disabled children in that family. Now the trust is managing the estates of those beneficiaries. So if you've got a joint trust, it may mean that certain of those beneficiary interests won't pass out to those people until they're 30 years old, maybe, So we've got time here, perhaps, if the parents have passed away, that those assets are being managed in the trust. So now the successor trustee is going to keep track of that and file an income tax return on that trust asset for that year. What might that be? It might be a savings account. I'm just using an example that's in the trust that's accruing interest, or it's a CD or it's a money market, whatever that's accruing interest, that interest would go to the trust. That's a taxable event to the trust. The deceased person's gone, their final tax return done. Now that trust, so the successor trustee is managing the trust through the stages of the joint trust provisions or taking care of the disabled child. So that's how it works going downstream. And that was a big answer to, the bank accounts and opening up a trust account. These are the little details, but they're not really that complicated. If we just think about it, what can an estate possibly have? I mean, there's just so many things.
Frank, I have a question.
Yes.
Let's say mom and dad as trustees. One is, two doctors say they're incompetent and one resigns and they're both alive. The conflict there is not a conflict between them, not a conflict, but you have a power of attorney and you have a trust document.
Yes.
Okay, so when does the successor trustee say, I need to, I have the power, if the successor trustee is the same as the power of attorney?
Okay. So understand this, the power of attorney dies when you die.
But these folks are not dead.
So they have the control. Why do they need a power of attorney if they're still alive?
Well, they're incompetent.
So wait, are you talking about the beneficiaries?
No, I'm talking about the trustors and then the trustees. The trustees now.
Successor trustee?
No, the existing trustee.
Husband and wife.
Okay, one is incompetent.
Okay, so they became incompetent after they got the trust?
Yes,
Okay.
and then one resigns.
So then the beneficiaries would select who would be the next one.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm not asking this correct. Yeah, okay, so we have a power of attorney. Okay, and you're my power of attorney.
I've got control. If you're the incapacitated
Yeah.
person now, I can make decisions for you.
Right, okay.
Yes.
So, but you're also my successor trustee.
Doesn't matter, two different things.
Right. So the question is, when the successor trustee takes over because mom and dad are alive but incompetent or for some reason.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Is that when we set up a trust account?
It's up to them. Again, you can set up a trust account anytime.
Okay.
It's just another thing that you have to manage. Keep in mind that whoever that successor trustee is, if they step up because it was the power of attorney, they are taking on a fiduciary responsibility to that estate, which could hold them liable in a court of law if they don't do it right.
So if mom and dad pick the oldest daughter as their power of attorney and their oldest son as the first successor trustee, and if the sister power of attorney does not want to set up the account, and the money's and their checking account is in their name and all their assets.
They have the power of attorney, as long as that person's alive, they hold the power.
Okay, okay.
It's
So-
not the successor trustee. Successor trustee means that they succeed after the trustor is passed or incapacitated. You still have one there. The power of attorney is the power document as long as the person's alive.
So if the successor trustee and the power of attorney disagree, the successor trustee has no power.
No, it's the power of attorney over that person.
Okay, so,
That's the reason they appointed me, is because they want me to manage their estate.
okay, okay.
Yep.
So I think that went in with Gary, when you asked about the bank account. I think we have to look at those situations, right? Or we have to be aware.
So again, these types of scenarios, they're not very common. I mean, anything can happen out there. We know that. So, so just understand that we're talking two separate documents.
Right.
The power of attorney is the person that I'm going to appoint, me as the trustor of I'm the grantor. Okay, let's use that language. I'm the grantor of this trust. Me and my wife, we're two grantors. I appoint my power of attorney to be my oldest son, not my wife. Now, in most cases, people have their spouse be it. Again, this is a family thing, not me. It's up to them. But let's say I appoint my son because I don't want my wife to have to deal with it, whatever reason, right? So now my son has the authority to manage my finances, to do those things that I've appointed that son to do on my behalf because I can't do it. Okay. And so now my surviving wife, she's the trustee. She's got access to whatever she needs to do too. She doesn't need a power of attorney. She can go tap into the bank account. She can do those things because she owns half of the estate. Does that make it even clearer?
Yeah, I just think sometimes there's confusion between the power of attorney authority and the trustee
Right,
authority.
right,
And-
right,
and-
right.
And but as as people get into their 90s, which is starting to happen now,
Yes,
and they're not passing away, but they're getting memory issues and
Yes.
and physical frailties and
Right.
things like that.
family
Uh,
members have to step up and start making decisions.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's the one with the power of attorney who could
Yes.
decide to put things in the trust.
Yes,
And maybe, but if the successor trustee and the power of attorney are not the same.
power of attorney has authority as long as I'm alive.
Okay,
When I die, the person I appointed as my son has no rule.
Okay.
My wife does.
executor.
My executor, my successor trust is my
Okay.
wife. She has authority over that trust. And that's,
And the reason I asked that, for you people listening, if you draw the family tree and you learn through those micro commitments that we talked about, that they say, hey, my wife has vascular dementia now, and I'm making all the decisions now, okay? But it's being controlled by the power of attorney, not the trust document.
power of
Okay?
attorney, right?
So when the power of attorney, if the person passes away, the power of attorney goes away and the will steps in.
The power of will only steps in if there's assets that haven't been put into the trust.
Right, right.
So it steps in then, and the successor trustee has authority over that. Everything dies with the power of attorney when I pass away. Now, here's one that comes up not too often, and that is a family, a husband and wife, they name maybe their children as the successor trustees. So they've got that all lined up beyond them. So this is how it's going to work. And the successor trustees decide, let's say the beneficiaries, who really has the control of an estate after I die? The beneficiaries. The beneficiaries can come together. Let's say they don't care for the successor trustee. Maybe it's a mother-in-law. Okay, I'm just creating a scenario. They don't like it. They want to boot them out. So they can have an election between the beneficiaries and they can remove the successor trustee legally. They can do it. So the concern then that the other spouse has that's now died is that these kids will join and they will put one of them in to be the successor trustee and they will destroy my estate. I know they can't do that. Why? Because there are specific rules in the trust that says that if the beneficiaries remove a successor trustee, they cannot appoint another successor trustee. It has to be through a law firm or CPA firm or a bank or credit union, an authority that's authorized to be a successor trustee of the state. That's who would be appointed. So that is by law. So now, and we had this happen. The reason I know is because it happened with the family that had a lot of people going on. And they were so afraid that that was going to happen because they understood the dynamics of their family and they could see it coming. And he was so afraid. I said, no, right here, just look at the articles of your trust. And it talks about succession of trustees. And this is another good study area. If you study each one of the articles, you know now when you're going through the interview, when you're going through that interview, you're able to say, this right here is going to be covered in Article 3. And when you can speak with specificity like that, that's impressive to people. It's like going to a doctor and you say, Doc, what's going on? They say, well, I need to get back to you. And I need to think about that. So the more certainty that you have, the more confident you become. And again, it's not rocket science. It's investing a little bit of time to become a subject matter expert. So someone says, how about successor? How's that work? Boom, here's the answer. It's right here. It's right here. This article right here. It explains all of it. That just gives them, the assurance that, what, it's right there. It explains all that right there. We had an attorney just the other day question about some of the provisions in our AB trust. We was talking about, this came from a law firm that happens to be a part of a white label. Okay. So they had gone through it and they said, where is it? This, and this, for an AB trust, where is it in the platform? Bang, we sent it right back. So, well, if you go into article this and read, it's every question they asked was right there. And like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't read the articles very well. Well, I don't know. What do you think? You may not have. So again, it's so well explained in those articles that you can answer things so quickly, just like that.
Frank, you've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes now. And
I feel like I'm just getting warmed up.
Well,
but
good. Let's open it up for questions one more time, and then we'll let Frank start wrapping up if he wants to. But let's go ahead and get your questions in right now if you've got some out there. Lisa, are there any other questions?
Yes, there's some questions in the chat.
Go ahead.
The first one was Gary Denner asked, are most folks changing the name on or opening a new account in the trust's name, or do they make the trust the POD TOD?
Okay, so I think I understand that whole question. And the answer is whatever the name is on the trust, whatever the name is, then that's what would go on the payable on death form with the bank. So when you go to a bank, banks understand what payable on deaths mean, POD. They understand that. It's a process that varies with bank to bank. They all have their own forms. Now, when my wife and I did ours, we had to go into the bank and we had to sit down with our personal banker and he had to check he had to go through all this so that we could point out, and we showed him the certificate of trust, didn't show him the trust, showed him the certificate, so that he then made all of our accounts payable on death to our trust. So he had the form, he just asked us questions, he was entering all the information, he turned his computer around, said, check the box, so we didn't have to fill out anything. So that is, they have those forms, and it's a very simple process. Now, and I think this may be a part of the question. If not, I'm going to make it a part of the question. When people want to change the name of a trust, so first of all, if it's a trust that they've had done elsewhere and they want to restate it with us, we have to restate it the same name that it had originally. We have to. The only way around it, if they say, well, we want to change it, we don't care about moving the assets, we'll move it, we want to change it. When that's the case, we have a form to revoke the original trust. So we provide it, so you would have the client revoke the original trust, and that form gets signed. Now, any asset, they take all the assets out of it before they revoke it. If they revoke it and then they got an issue, so you remove the assets, you revoke that trust, and then you can start new. You can name that trust, the John Hitchcock Trust, whatever you want to do, you can do that and then put those assets back into it. Now, we get cases where someone will purchase the trust and then they decide that, I want to change the name. We get that. You cannot change the name. We get inquiries like, how do I change the name on my trust? You can't. If we allowed you to change the name on a trust, then all a person would have to do is buy one and then go in and change the names and keep, we're talking about the law of replication or duplicate. We're talking duplication there, and duplication doesn't serve any of us well. So we don't do that. So anytime there's a change to a name, we have to do it. So what we look to you for as the agent is to make sure that the reason for the name change is a good reason. And that they haven't already funded the other one, because the original name that they've got. If they've already generated documents, they've already had those documents executed, even if it hasn't been funded, they have to go back in and generate new documents and get them executed again. It's a pain. The big point I'm trying to make here is that, can people come back and have a mindset change and they just want to change the name? Yes, that can happen. But what I find is that when people really understand that the name you put on the trust has zero relevance to the trust, it doesn't matter what the name is. I know people, myself included, that do not have a name on my trust that you would ever guess. You would never guess it. Why am I concerned about that? I'm concerned today more than ever, and I'm going to be concerned in the future more than I am today about protecting my data. We become slaves to our data. Now, that is a strong statement. We never would have thought of that statement 10, 20, 30, 50 years, a slave to our, we today, it used to be we're a slave to ourselves, protecting ourselves, self-survival. Now we are concerned about protecting our identity, our data. Why? Because we are vulnerable. Talking about setting ducks on a pond, we are setting ducks on a pond, and we're becoming more vulnerable every day. People are taking shots at us every day from every angle. Think of it. I get text messages, I get stuff, I don't know where it comes from. And they tell me stuff about me that, how did you know that? I mean, you get that stuff, I'm sure you do. How did you know that? And I don't know how they find it, but it's out there. Our information is out there. So what I don't want anybody knowing that my titled assets are in my trust. And the only way I can protect that is the name on my trust is nothing anybody's going to guess. They would never guess it. So that's the reason why I stress, we don't make an issue out of it. Don't try to talk somebody out of it. If they say, I want my family name on it, all I'm going to do is explain. Here's the logic behind, doing it this way. I'm not telling you what to do, but some people, they just want their name on, just my family, that's their legacy, and that's fine. But once they collect the dots in their mind, it's still your legacy. Your family's going to know it's coming from you. So how you had it named in the trust, that's immaterial. But I just wanted to point that out because that does come up quite frequently. Yes, sir.
Getting back to the funding
Automobiles.
I always give them copy letter and tell them to go ahead and change that to the name of the trust.
Yeah. So the question is, so the question is, what do you do with automobiles, which are planes, motorcycles, all these things that are registered with the state? Different states have different rules. Again, this is something that you can Google, and we've learned this ourselves. Some states have made it easy for registered vehicles to transfer out of an estate when a person deceases. And I think Florida's one. I think it is. I think so. They just know that it's a big problem. You know, it's a big problem. Most people, they've got their vehicles in their name and then they die. And what do I do? How do I sell it? What do I do? So typically it's a probate. You got to go to probate court and get an affidavit of probate in order to sell that vehicle from the estate. You have to do that. Some states have simplified it to say, okay, all you need is proof of death and just something that says you're to get it, and we'll make the transfer for you. What our general rule of thumb is, why take a chance? Just go ahead and put the vehicle into your name. You can do it online. It's a nominal fee and just get it done. So then you notify your property and casualty insurance carrier to let them know that you're putting the vehicle into the name of your trust so that they can include that with your insurance policy. It does not change the premium. I often tell people, if it was me, I mean, we know our agent, you know, our property and casualty agent pretty well. I just call him up and say, Brian, you know, it's what I'm doing, you know, whatever you need to do on your side, just please get it done for me. Okay, I will. So it's just, you know, I do it ahead of time, say, you know, can you do this for me or do I need to do it? Whatever. They do it. They know how to do that. It doesn't change the premium. Some people, you know, they feel like, well, if I put the vehicle in my company name, it changes the premium. Well, that's your company. Your company is a different thing than your trust. Your trust is you. So yeah, those things change, but no, it doesn't change the premium on your house or your vehicle. Timeshares. We get asked about timeshares. A lot of people have timeshares. There are two types of timeshares. There are timeshares where you're buying time. Those you don't really get a deed to. So you don't really have an ownership interest. You'd have to check your timeshare contract to see if they allow you to have someone succeed you in the ownership of that timeshare. So it's not a real estate transfer. It's whatever the timeshare agreement says. That it would be where you're just buying timeshares. The other type of timeshare is called an equity timeshare. An equity timeshare is different. This is where the timeshare company is going to take a property and they're going to have maybe 10 owners or 12 owners. So now I own essentially 1 month of this timeshare. So that 1 month is deeded to me. So that's a piece of my real estate and I can fund that in. Again, we always tell people to check with the contract that you have with the timeshare people to make sure of what's covered in that you get it covered in your trust. But those are essentially the two types, equity and non-equity. Non-equity, you don't have to worry about it. The other thing we'll get asked about are cemetery plots. Cemetery plots are a piece of real estate. However, cemeteries typically issue a little deed for that plot. So it's not something that goes through the county recorder's office. It's managed by the cemetery ownership. So that's all handled with cemeteries. And, you know, they've got the names of the families on that. So those are just, you know, we've covered digital assets, you know, anything that's personal property, you know, it just goes in the bucket. You know, most things that today end up in not being bequested out. So I made sure that this particular item that my mom and dad had, I got it because I had it bequested to me. Otherwise, it was just personal property. It was stuff, but it had some meaning to me. So bequest are things that can change or not change or whatever. But if it's not bequested, then if the beneficiaries cannot agree on who gets what, then that's another role and responsibility of the successor trustee is they have the authority to have an estate sale. So the successor trustee, they're just kind of done with it. It's like, you know, look, you kids, you can't agree on this, who's going to get what. I'm just going to settle it right now. I'm going to do an estate sale. And whatever we sell, I'm going to take the money, I'm going to divide it. That is an authority that the successor trustee has. So the beneficiaries need to put their heads together and agree on who's going to get what. Otherwise, that is what will happen. The only exception to that rule would be whatever that's been bequested out of the trust that would go to those people. So those I'm just thinking in my mind, okay, here's one. Foreign assets or foreigners. Can a foreigner that's not a citizen of the United States have an estate plan? The answer is yes, as long as they are here legally. If they are not here legally, then they aren't going to probably be owning legally any titled assets in the United States. Why? Because it would be difficult for them if they're not here legally to show proof that they can have that asset titled to their name. So if they are here in this country legally, which we assume anybody you're going to be dealing with would be here legally, then if they have assets in this country, those assets that are in this country, titled assets, would only transfer out of their estate through probate or through a trust. So the same rule applies to a non-US citizen as it would to a US citizen. We're not talking about citizenship values. We're talking about American assets, US assets, titled assets. How do you transfer a titled asset? One of two ways, a court order or a legal contract. Legal contract is a trust. So yes, they can do that. How about I have foreign assets that I want to leave in my trust? How do I do that? I have real estate in France. How do I leave that to my grandson? How do I do that? Well, you do that by bequesting it in your trust. You bequest it. If you just throw it in the bucket to the beneficiaries, they're all going to get their percentage of it. But transferring that percentage of that piece of real estate in France is going to be regulated by France law, not by US law. The only thing that you've got legally in the United States is it's been stipulated in this trust that you are to receive it. So let's say it's coming from me, all right? I own this piece of property in France. I've got proof that I own this piece of property in France. I have got a living trust. The world market understands trust law. Every country has their own, okay? So they know that this is an American trust that's got that's got this asset. So then they would be able to transfer that asset in France to the person that's stipulated in my American agreement, but based on French law. What is that? It could be a transfer tax. Typically, countries make it a little bit challenging, monetarily speaking. Why? Because they want to make money off of it. So some countries have more transfer tax than others, but all countries have it. How about U.S. possessions? U.S. possessions have their own law. Puerto Rico has its own law. You know, the United States Virgin Islands, they have their own law. U.S. Samoa, they have their own law. So yeah, you can, but again, if that's U.S. possessions, the laws are going to most likely be closer, but still transferring those assets that are in those countries are up to those countries' laws. So, but can you leave it in our trust? Absolutely. If you don't, then you got another issue. It's a bigger challenge if you don't than if you do. So, so these are just the little things that come up. So now you're out there in the field and you're building your business around estate planning. And I can tell you, and you already have heard this a lot, and that is estate planning is a tremendous building block for annuities, life insurance, other opportunities, referrals. We've got people that used to invest 10, 15, 20,000 a month and more in marketing. I know that may sound dramatic, but it's not. We've got some very, 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 very successful people that historically invested a lot of money every month to get leads, a lot, but they made a lot of money. Today, they don't have to do that because they built such a big network with their clients and estate planning that it's self-perpetuating. It perpetuates itself. It just grows. It really does, like planting seeds. So if you use this, take advantage of this opportunity, you can build a very successful business as a licensee. We've got licensees out there, and I promise you, I'm not exaggerating, that have seen their income go from 100, 150,000 a year to 500,000 a year and more because of this. And all they're interested in doing is estate planning. That's it. I was telling Randy last night about one of our top people, and he's been with us probably 10 years, but this is all he does. He's been in the business 30 years. This is all he does. For the first time in his life, he's hired 3 full-time people to work in his office. He's in Illinois. 3 full-time people that he's trained, not as insurance people, but as administrators to handle all of his clients. He's got on his desk plans stacked up with binders around them to be delivered to his estate clients. Because this year he'll do probably at least 175 estate plans. Writes a tremendous amount of annuities and life insurance on the back. He's making over $1 million a year. So this is just one person. He has no interest in anything else. Be a white label? No. Frank, no. I'm not. All I'm interested in is building my practice. I've got 3 ladies now working for me that I'd never had working for. One of them, she's getting her license because she's learned enough about the business that she's going to be an agent in my office, and she's learned how to use it. So that's what, but I'm not interested in hiring agents. I'm not interested. I am a very, very, very successful businessman, and this is what I like to do. That's one attitude, right? My attitude when I got in this business was I want to build a company. All right. So a little bit different. So this is where we have the opportunity for you to become a master licensee. Now, master licensee is only for people that want to learn this business so that you can replicate. Replicating is one key to success, to work yourself, get other people to work with you and help you, and then invest time and money to grow your estate, to grow your value of your business. So now I want to replicate. I want to get some master licensee. So now I recruit other agents to become licensees. And when I do that, then I can qualify at a certain point to be a master licensee, and I can earn overrides on the licensees that I've recruited. I can do that. Can you go beyond that? Yes. We have got people that started as a licensee, moved up to become a master licensee that are today white labels. They went through the step by step by step. We've got a lady up in North Carolina, started with us as a licensee February, I think, maybe January, February this year. Just a general agent, right? She goes out. She said, I really like this. Let me test. So she started doing it herself, and she started writing plans every month. She was doing little workshops, small, 5, 10 people. She was writing plans and writing insurance. And so finally she decided that she had been in the insurance business for like 30 some years. She was tired she said, I'm tired. I just like this estate plan, and this is all I'm going to do. And if they come to me, I'll write an insurance policy, but this is all I'm going to do. I was talking now she's a white label. She is a white label, and because she sees it in her own business, and she said, I'm going to do a white label. So she became a white label, I think maybe June or July or whatever. But she said this year she'll do probably 200 plans, and she'll stumble into life insurance. But she said, I'm not looking for it anymore, Frank. I'm tired. I've been in this business a long time. I'm like 70 years old. I'm now having fun. But if they really twist my arm, Randy, I'll go ahead and write that, that IUL, but they got to really push me because I really am an estate planning specialist. So that's the fun that you can have in this business, when it really goes click, 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 which is kind of the way my mind works. Once it goes click, it's like, there's no stopping us now.
One thing there.
Yes.
The master licensee has the opportunity to take a licensee and show them the back end sale and help them close the cases until the licensee no longer needs them.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so
replication is training.
yes. So the master licensee, what are the responsibilities of a master licensee?
It's to take the responsibility, and I look at it as ownership. When we started this company, and I reminded my partner Dean of this just the other day, because I'm telling the bigger we get, the more challenging it gets. It's challenging, and so I had to remind my partner just the other day, Dean, you and I signed up for this, buddy. We signed up for this when we started this company 15 years ago. And I'm not going to tell you what this was about. It was between he and I. Okay, let's just leave it at that. I said, we signed up for this, partner. Yes. And come on, guy, we got to do it. So, it's part of just what you go through. We get married for, till life and death do us part. Some people find an excuse, but I told Dean, there is no getting out of this one, buddy. We're in it. We are in it to win it. And we are doing that. So yeah, it's a mindset is what it gets. It's replication. I knew, and if any of you have heard me speak before, I made a point to say that when we started this company, I didn't know jack. and I'll just leave the blank there, okay? I really didn't know jack when it comes to estate planning. I was like a deer in the headlights. First appointment we ever went on, Dean was with me. He had to show the demo because I couldn't even do that. But, you know, I had motivation, and that was, we were heavily invested in this and we believed in it. So I just had to learn the business. And it's fun discovering this business. It really is fun to discover something that I didn't know. It's fun discovering something that other people are interested in learning about. It really is. I never have an issue having a conversation with someone when they understand that I know what I'm talking about. It's very, very easy to stumble into that. Very easy. When I moved into our current home, our next door neighbor came over to greet us. We're still movers or moving stuff around. And she just came on in and came in our kitchen, sat down on a stool and said, "What do you do?" And her name is Valerie Martin. I said, "Why do you ask?" "Well, my husband and I, we own a business. They're pretty successful people." And I started telling her what we do. And she said, "We went to a law firm here in Chandler. They wanted $7,000 to do a trust for us. And $7,000, and you're telling me that you can do it for this?" I said, "Yeah, Valerie." She said, "Holy cow." And then they give us these brochures on funding our trust. And we didn't buy it because we're like, this is too much work. So she sat there the first day that we moved into that house. She bought an estate plan for me. I promise you, I never say I swear on that. No, I don't do that. But my wife was like, I don't believe what this has happened here. But that's a true story. So her name is Valerie Martin. And so it's like, holy cow, it's a good thing you moved in. You saved us a lot of money. And then I remind her sometime when I'll see her, "Hey, did you get that trust? I know you bought a ranch over in Texas. You put that in there." "No, we've got to get around. Quit reminding me, Frank."
I need around to it.
Get around to it. There you go.
Yeah.
So it really is fun. And people really, they want to know how does that work? How does that work? So, just taking a little time to be able to understand. It's like I was explaining to you, when people get hung up in their own minds, we're our greatest enemies sometimes, right? And the people that we're working with, they become their greatest enemies when they start telling you how they want it to work. How I want this to happen and this to happen and this. It's and I don't want them. And if my son marries this woman, I want to take it all back. And I'm dead, I know, been gone. But if he marries her, I want it all to. I mean, we hear everything when people's imaginations kick in. Steve, I know you've heard a bunch of them. You're smiling. I mean, it never, ever shocks me when somebody tells me a condition that they want to leave something. I just shake my head and say, "Really? You really want to write that up that way? You really want that written up that way?" And they're like, "Yeah, what's wrong with it?" It's like, "You tell me what's wrong with it. You tell me, you're gone, you don't have to answer to anybody. And now these people are trying to figure this out. What do you mean they did what?" So, I mean, it's just, it's funny, but it's really not funny when we stop and think about it. But that's how people get hung up in their own minds about angling on things. And here's one to think about also. It's like a parable, right? If somebody has their mind that organized, you follow what I'm saying? How in the world would they ever want to go to probate court? I mean, if they've given you a mindset, think about that, Randy. You're talking about the go-to first interview, and they're telling me how they want all these things. Well, you got a better chance winning the Tennessee lottery than you do all of that happening by going through probate court. That's what kind of chances you got, because a probate court judge isn't going to give that the time of day. It just doesn't work that way in the real world. In other words, we have to get people to think about what they're thinking about. And so I'm going to kind of bring this into a little bit of a wrap up. And that is, Randy's heard me say this a lot, and I talk about it's a mindset. Everything comes down to how we think. And it hit me just recently. I think a lot. I think my wife would tell you that she sees me just standing out back a lot, especially at night, a lot. Not talking to anybody. Well, I'm talking. Okay, so I'm out back Nope, I'm not watching TV. I'm not listening to it's quiet, it's peaceful, and I may stay out there for several hours. Seriously, because it's the time when I can really talk to myself. It's a time that I can really get to know who I am. So just recently, a question popped in my mind, and that was, how would I define life? And that was like, okay, God, how would I define life? How would you define life? And I'm not telling you this to get you out there taking people into the woo land of, get people to thinking, weird stuff. But just think about how would you define your life? If someone asked you, how would you define your life? And I really started giving a lot of thought to that. How would I define it? What would I like to look back on in my life and say, you know what? This is what I did. This is how I lived my life. And did it all go well? No, it didn't. I can tell you, there's things that's happened in my life with my family that, I wouldn't wish on anybody. And yet it's just what happened. But it's my life and I have to be accountable for it. And I just try to encourage people to think about that. We look at people and we even admire them sometimes about what they accomplish. And we watch TV, we watch great athletes, even politicians, for gosh sakes, why they are popular, I don't know sometimes, but they position themselves by being authoritative on some subject, even if it's not even true sometimes, unfortunately. But people that really succeed, think about it. I met a person here in Knoxville a year ago that has a huge insurance agency here. You were with me, actually. I forget the gentleman's name now. I guess it's on billboards or whatever. He's got property and casualty. He's got jets. He's a very wealthy guy. And so I met him at the Tennessee game or whatever, South Carolina game. Yeah, I met him there. He was up in a suite with the Coach Fulmer, and I happen to know those people. So, and this guy is this big agent, and he's just a good old boy. Basically, he's just a farm boy, and maybe 50 years old, and he's got 1,000 agents or whatever he's got, and he just knows. And another mutual friend told me about him. He said this guy he really knows his business. And that's really all it comes down to. It's how bad do you want to be great at what you do? That's all it comes to. How willing are you to work at what you do to be great at it? And we see it with athletes and we see it with people that really, I used to practice speaking in a room in front of a mirror to train myself on how to speak with confidence. I practiced, I rehearsed it. So if we want, the only thing I'm not good at are things that I don't want to be good at. It's like working on a car. All I had to do was bust my knuckles up a few times as a teenager. I was like, I guess this isn't meant to be for me. I can't, I'm tired of blood. I got blood on my knuckles now, and I'm going to use this up here. I'm going to pay someone else to do this stuff down here. But it's all because I didn't develop a mindset to want to know how to do it. When my wife says, how come you can't fix that? I said, because I never learned how. That's why. And I'm not going to now either. Get somebody else to fix it. So, it's just, what do you really want to be good at? And if you really commit yourself to that, you won't stumble into success. It will happen. Things don't just happen. They happen justly because of what we've done and what we've committed ourselves to do. When you commit yourself to knowing that the full value of someone having a living trust, not a dying trust, and the full value and the impact that it's going to make on that family. It may be a grandchild that was just born 2 months ago that will be impacted by what you're doing today. Those are things that you can't put a value on. You can't put a value on.
Frank, one thing, for those people out there listening, there's an easy way to enter this market, and that is to repeat the behaviors of the people who are already successful at it and learn what they do. And you have to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to think that there are people in your life that might benefit from a conversation with you about their current estate plan. And you have to write their names down. And, don't look at the whole world or the whole earth. Look at 10. Just pick 10 people that you can approach. And once you decide who those people are, then you have to approach them. So you have to know what to say. And we teach you what to say. It's one sentence. You don't have to do anything fancy. You learn the one sentence I talked to you about an hour or so ago. I think you might benefit from a conversation with me about your current estate plan. And if they give you any feedback and say, why would I do that? I'll teach you what else to say after that. What you say is, the reason you need to talk to me is because most people that talk to me usually learn something in which they were not aware. And if they say no after that, add somebody else to your suspect list. And if you just always have 10 good suspects and then we teach you how to build the bridge from a suspect to the prospect. And a lot of people didn't even know there was a suspect. They thought everybody was prospects. They're not. They're not a prospect until they agree to talk to you. And so you have to be really good and a master at the ability to get people to want to talk to you. Well, once you get them to want to talk to you, you have to know what the next step is. That's why we do the go-to first interview. The family tree asset positioning go-to first interview will open the door to everything that we've talked about today. Okay, so if you open the door with the go-to first interview and use the power phrases that we teach, you get up to the point is, hey, you've done a great job with your assets. Don't you think we need to have the right paperwork? They'll say yes. And then you're ready to go. After you do the right paperwork and you get the paperwork set up, you look at them and you say, I've got some ideas for you, but I need to do some research before we meet again, and I need to run some numbers when we meet again. Would you like to see those numbers? Well, now you're right into the funding process. Okay. Once you get into the funding process and you bring the estate plan to the table and we're getting it notarized and witnessed, I like to have their neighbors come in to be witnesses because their witnesses are going to listen to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what they're going to say. Mom or dad's going to turn around to the other one. She's going to go, we need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I make it a joke, but I always want to have some round two-its in my pocket. As soon as they say that, I reach my pocket and I flip them around to it and they laugh. But when they laugh, they bond with you.
Absolutely.
They automatically know you, like you, trust you, just because you've made them giggle or something, and
Yeah.
nothing that's serious.
Yeah.
And they will, if you're getting their witnesses, you get their driver's license, you get their name, their address, everything on their driver's license, ready to go. Now all you got to do is approach them. Well, what do you say when you approach them? When you approach them, you go, hey, I think you might benefit from a conversation with me about your current estate plan. It's a cycle. It goes all the way back around. And if you become a master at your process, you'll have so much business you won't be able to get it done.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
So that's if you want to be involved with us, we will teach you how to get up to the point where you can do the estate plan. I have two mentors in that area. One is Frank Divers. The other one is Mike Bemis. When I get them up to that point, where I'm going to spend my time with you is I need to figure out what your tempo is. Some of you licensees that are here today have had a license for a year and not written any business. Well, there's a reason why, and I can always find out the reason why. The reason why is you have no suspect list and you haven't decided to approach them correctly. And if you have an existing agency, you've got all your clients already, they're just waiting on you to ask. So we teach you how to do business with people who have done business with you in the past. We teach you how to do business with people who have not done business with you in the past. We'll turn around and once I can see if you've been with me for a year and you've written 4 cases, I understand your tempo is one every 90 days. So all I have to do is teach you what was it you did to establish that tempo. And if you understand what you did to establish that tempo, say, okay, now all we have to do is repeat that behavior in an increasing number of times, and that's called building momentum. So if Frank's an expert in the trust and Mike Bemis is an expert in the funding, I'm going to tell you that this company, Family Estate Docs, we are experts in teaching you how to enter the market, succeed, and prosper, and how to get up to the point where you can have an interview to close the case. That's what we do, and I think better than anybody else around. So I just want to put in.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And because, nothing speaks louder than success. And so again, that's the round to it thing. Another one we heard about is what they call a signing celebration. Just a signing celebration. When you tell a client that, it's like, wow, what is that? It's like, well, we're going to celebrate this. And so I've heard stories of where they get balloons make, you know, they get them pre-bred and they'll put like sign-in celebration. They walk in with balloons, even cupcakes, celebrating, you know, and people look at that and say, wow. And the thing about that, when you make them giggle a little bit, you can't think negative when you're giggling. And I heard just yesterday or 2 days ago, you actually burn 3 times more calories when you're laughing than when you're frowning. So we're helping people burn more calories, stay healthier. I'm serious. You burn more calories when you're laughing than you do when you're not. So I'm helping you lose weight, stay in condition, giggle. You know, we're putting it all together with a sign and so. So have a cupcake, and back to the witnesses, they're like, wow, you know, maybe we should have a celebration. So there, and notaries, when notaries have never seen anything like that. I first heard that in California. It's like, man, this notary came out. It's like, what are we doing here? Celebrating? What are we celebrating? So you never know what may trigger, you know, that next thing. And that next thing, you know, and I'm closed with this. And that is, I've said it, we never know what the next moment holds. On June the 26th, I was doing a training program in Irvine, California with a group of agents. I don't know, it was 50 or 60, I forget, it doesn't matter. So, and when I was wrapping it up, and they videoed it, when I was wrapping it up as one of our white labels, and for some reason, it just hit me as like, you know, and I'm just going to have to remind you, you never know what's going to happen. And I said it 2 or 3 times, like you really never know. You never know. So I get on an airplane, I fly back to Phoenix that night. It was a Wednesday night. Thursday, I go into my office downtown Phoenix, the 27th of June, have my day, and I'm leaving out of my offices, going up a city street, you know, 4 lanes, and, you know, city street, 35, 40 miles an hour speed limit. And I'm minding my own business, going up my side of the road, and out of nowhere, within less than a second, a car came out of nowhere from the other direction, doing over 70 miles an hour, and hit me head on. Hit me head on. My car exploded. It was like getting hit with a bomb. And it was like, I mean, it's everything inside my car exploded. The bags, everything. Fortunately, I was driving a car that was well engineered, an Audi. And so when they got there to pry me out of that car, you know, the paramedics, it was like, whoa. And one of the police officers standing in the background, he said, "And you're alive?" I said, "Yeah." And so they take me to a trauma unit, and you know, they just kept saying, "Man, you must have had a guardian angel with you." And I said, "I did. Obviously I did." And so when it came time for my wife and I to have a conversation, I asked her what she took away from that experience, and she said that you're still with me. That hit. And then she asked me, "What did you take away?" And I said, "You never know." So that's my testimony. Within one day, if I showed you a picture of the car, you'd go, wow, he's seen it. I mean, people ask me, are you afraid to drive? It took me a while to get in a car. Still, I'm very sensitive, especially at night when I see a light flash, because you just never know. You know, they were doing that. The cop told me, he said, you had less than 1 second to react. All I had time to do was yank my wheel, and that was it. So when I'm telling people, you don't know, you really don't. And so we're going to create a little testimonial video about that when I get around to it.
Give you one before you leave. Tony
But-
Sheets has a question for you.
Okay, what's the question?
Tony?
Actually, I'm sorry that you had such a, powerful ending here. I'm sorry to ask a minutia question.
Okay.
No. The question you don't ask is the one I want to hear.
All right. You were talking about the bank accounts, and are you saying that it's just as acceptable to let the people keep their bank accounts in their name as long as they go into the bank and do the payable on death, as opposed to going through having them put the bank account in the trust, which then requires them ordering new checks and, requires, that little point of friction. So basically it's like, the question I'm asking is, are we better off going ahead and recommending people do the point of friction and put the account in the trust, or are we better off just having them, do the payable on death?
I would do payable on death. So we also have what's called asset retitlement. So when we first started the company, the attorney said, let's do asset retitlement. So asset retitlement, if you were in your funding kit under the cash and cash accounts, when you fill out one, it'll say down in the left-hand corner, it'll say generate asset retitlement letter. So it will actually generate, the system will generate that letter that you can provide to the bank or credit union to put the name of the trust on the account. Okay, so now you are putting the trust name on the account, but you're keeping your name on the account, and you're not having to close accounts, open new accounts, new checks, none of that. It's called asset retitlement, and our system will print the letter for you. So that's one way of doing it. Now, the reason that we lean towards payable on death is because most banks don't want to do an asset retitlement. And here's some logic behind it. Number one is their technology is not set up to do it. They don't do it. And unfortunately, some banks like to keep a little bit of an incentive there for you to open up more accounts. They get incentivized by opening accounts. So if the bank officer, the person that you're working with, is trying to encourage you to open up another account, you can bet that there's an incentive there for them to do that. Wells Fargo got nailed with that back a few years ago. It was a huge, huge lawsuit, federal, against them because they proved that their tellers were getting people to open up multiple accounts, even open up debit cards and all kinds of stuff because they would get little bonuses for that. $20, $50, can't do that. So we've had cases where people are talking to a banker. Some bankers like to play lawyer. Okay. Some notaries like to play lawyer, and we can't stop that. But this we know, and that is when a bank says, well, we can't do that, we need to do this, we know they can do payable on death. We know that. So rather than make an issue, that's the line of least resistance. So I will typically tell the client, let's call your bank and not go, let's call them and see, do you do payable on death or do you take asset retitlement? We want to put our accounts into our trust. So they'll tell you, they say, no, we do payable, we don't do asset retitlement. And we need to see a certificate of trust. We need to know the proof, all of that stuff, which is standard operating procedure. They're going to do that. So yeah, I would always recommend to definitely set it up payable on death. I wouldn't want to get accounts in the name of the trust unless it's asset retitlement. Then that's just a matter of adding the trust name to it. And our documents will do that. It will print that letter out, but it all depends on whether the bank or credit union will accept that as a formal way of doing it. But I definitely would not, register we have people say, well, I've got my trust, an attorney friend of mine or whatever said I needed to get an EIN number for the trust. That's not true. You only need to get an EIN number for the trust when the grantors pass away. Until then, it's business as usual. They file their taxes. If they own a corporation, they still file their taxes through the corporation. If they're personal, they're still filing their taxes. Nothing kicks in with the trust until it's time to settle it. The grantor or grantors have passed away. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. That was a completely perfect answer, that it deals with a point of friction. So thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Again, line of least resistance, payable on death. They all, oh yeah, we do that. So it's like, okay, let's just do it that way. But I do like to ask about asset retitlement because it's a good way to do it. But again, some of them just don't want to mess with it.
Frank, it's been 3 hours. You've done a wonderful job. We could go on for days, I'm sure. Frank flew almost 3,000 miles to get here.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Just to talk to all of us, and we really do appreciate it. Any wrapping statements?
All I can say is that this has been the greatest thrill of my life. I'm an entrepreneur. It took me 50 years to figure out what that really meant. And that meant that I was very impatient with business. It meant my wife was always trying to tell me you're impatient. I didn't understand that also applies to I get bored in business and want to sell something and go do something else. And that's true. That's just my life story. But it's been what I was made to be. And it took me 50 years to really see it all come full circle, to see everything that we've experienced. And, the things I regret are not maintaining relationships. more than anything, as I look back and look at my hand and all the hands I've shook, and to not have maintained a lot of really good relationships over the years. People pass through your life like wind blowing through the shutters. And that's a sad thing, but you know, it's caused me now to pay more attention to people, to pay more attention to relationships, because it's the only thing that we really have in life. Everything else is superficial. Money. You know, once you have money, it's not an issue anymore. You know, it's like, okay, let's just go do that. So it's only an issue when you're working for it, but it comes, and it comes naturally when you get your mindset, you know, when you become good at whatever it is. I said earlier, how would you define your life? Think about that. You know, just think about how would you like to really define your life, and seriously understand that your legacy doesn't live too far beyond us. It just doesn't go too far. So I just wrap up with that.
Okay,
Thank
well-
you very much, everybody that's been out there on Zoom. I appreciate you so much. And we truly are, when we sign things, I tell you, I mean this sincerely. We really are here to serve. We really are here. That's all we're here to do, is serve. That's it.
And I just have one wrap up. When you guys signed on with Family Estate Docs, I told you what our motto is, and it's we're only going to teach you what we know, and we're only going to teach you what we do. And we're really not interested in trying to change anything. We want you to emulate our process. There's one video that I'm going to wrap up with. I want you to go to randallbaxter.com, and I want you to look at it, because if you're really wanting to prosper in this business, let me teach you to hunt. That's all I got to say. And I appreciate you being here today, and you're all important to us. You just need to know that our Monday classes at 9 o'clock are on suspecting, at 10 o'clock it's on prospecting, at 11 o'clock it's on the go-to first interview, and at 12 o'clock it's on the back end sale. And you can always have those, and always, but if you come up to me and say, I'm struggling, I'm going to tell you the same thing over and over and over. Start at the beginning and develop a list of suspects. So thanks, everybody, and we appreciate it.
Were there any more questions in the chat box? I don't know. Did we get everything answered?
A whole lot of people have said thank you.
Well, good.
Okay.
Thank you back.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Everybody appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adios. Adios.